Two Beyond Duality, a biography of His Divine Grace Śrīla Gaura Kiśora Das Bābājī Mahārāja and His Divine Grace Śrīla Jagannath Das Bābājī by Karnamrita Das Adhikari, New Jaipur Press. Introduction. The descriptions of the exploits of Om Vishnupada Paramahamsa Srimad Gaura Kiśora Das Bābājī Maharaj are certain to bewilder materialistic persons. For one who is under the sway of worldly desires cannot enter into the mysteries of the deeds and thoughts of a person fully immersed in spiritual consciousness. Even a most learned scholar cannot understand the activities and symptoms of an exalted personality in whose heart love of Godhead has awakened. Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 23.40, cited from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.4.17. There are two kinds of realized devotees of Lord Krishna, the Bhajananandis and the Goshtyanandis. The liberated preachers or Goshtyanandis step down from the highest transcendence and behave in a way which is intelligible to ordinary conditioned jivas with a view to inspiring them to take up devotion to Krishna. The liberated Bhajananandis, on the other hand, generally do not step down to the platform of Madhyamadhikari, the preacher of moderate spiritual advancement. Remaining immersed in their service to Krishna on the platform of spontaneous devotion, they take note of the illusory material world and those who inhabit it, but occasionally and then in a most perfunctory way. This is not due to a lack of compassion on their part, but rather is determined by the inspiration they receive from the Godhead and an intensity of humbleness that convinces them they are too lacking in devotion to school others in the holy life. Moreover, the Bhajananandis' thoughts are not always transformed by them into a materially intelligible expression. Thus, their words and activities may at times seem inscrutable or otherworldly. Some devotees are instrumentally utilized by the Lord in the work of propagating the signs of devotion. Others are inspired by the Lord and His pure devotees to lead lives of seclusion and intense renunciation. It might be said that Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji, who was a genuine Bhajananandi, did little preaching, yet his influence was felt by the greatest preacher of the day, and that preacher gave him credit as inspiration. Therefore, although it is a fact that Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Srila Saraswati Thakur, and Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada all emphasize widely preaching Krishna consciousness for the benefit of all, we should not commit the blunder of imagining that a devotee like Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj was less advanced than they. Very few devotees in this age are qualified to perform Nirjana Bhajana, solitary worship in the manner of Haridas Thakur, Raghunath Das Goswami, Loknath Goswami, Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj, or Gaura Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj. In fact, those who attempt it generally end up meditating on sex life and performing illicit activities in secret. Such efforts are often motivated by desire to achieve name and fame as a Vaishnava. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur has written about this, and Srila Prabhupada has also commented. One reference is made here for those who are very anxious to imitate the behavior of Thakur Haridas in an unnatural way. One must receive the order of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu or his representative before adopting such a way of life. The duty of a pure devotee or a servant of the Lord is to carry out the orders of the Lord. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked Nityananda Prabhu to go to Bengal and preach, and he asked the Goswamis, Rupa and Sanatana, to go to Vrindavana and excavate the lost places of pilgrimage. In this case, the Lord asked Haridas Thakur to remain there at Jagannath Puri and constantly chant the holy names of the Lord. Thus, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave different persons different orders, and consequently, one should not try to imitate the behavior of Haridas Thakur without being ordered by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu or his representative. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur condemns such imitation in this way. My dear mind, you are trying to imitate Haridas Thakur and chant the Hare Krishna mantra in a secluded place. But you are not worth being called a Vaishnava because what you want is cheap popularity and not the actual qualification of Haridas Thakur. If you try to imitate him, you will fall down, for your neophyte position will cause you to think of women and money. Thus, you will fall into the clutches of Maya, and your so-called chanting in a secluded place will bring about your downfall. Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Leela 11.195 purport. In his preaching, Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji always spoke out against those who were cheating in the name of reclusive chanting. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, upon the order and approval of his gurus, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Srila Gaura Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, spent some years performing such secluded bhajana, following a vow similar to that of Srila Haridas Thakur. Yet, he did not recommend it for his followers. In fact, he took sannyasa, situating himself within the Varnashrama corpus so as to offer special respect to the Paramhamsas such as Rupa Goswami and Rupanuga Goswamis, including his father and guru. to demonstrate how exalted and rare such perfect devotion and purity are, and how high the qualifications are for those who want to follow in the footsteps of liberated souls. One should, at any rate, not misunderstand the position of a genuine devotee like Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji, who was actually a liberated Paramahamsa Babaji. According to the material view, he made his appearance in the world in an ordinary Vaishya merchant class family and was not well educated, being practically illiterate. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur has described his spiritual master in his song Shri Guru Parampara, Mahabhagavata Bara, Hari Gaura Kishora Bara, Hari Bhajaneta Yara Moda. The eminent Mahabhagavata Sri Gaura Kishore Das Babaji, whose sole joy was found in Hari Bhajana. Srila Prabhupada described him in a letter to Raya Dāsa, dated December 14, 1967. To think of becoming a fool is a real qualification for a bona fide disciple. As soon as one thinks that he has become the wiser man than his spiritual master, one is surely doomed. We should remain everlastingly a fool before the spiritual master, not artificially, but feelingly. And then we can make real progress. Even my spiritual master, a great scholar, remained a so called fool before his spiritual master, who was outwardly an illiterate village fellow. So, in the absolute world, the fool is also the master, and the master is also a fool in reciprocal dealings. Lord Chaitanya also accepted himself a great fool before his spiritual master, and all of us must follow the transcendental process. In his manifest pastimes, Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj exhibited a relentlessness, acute detachment and indifference to the material world. On the other hand, when he took occasion to extol the unlimited glories of the holy name and point out the varieties of cheating and hypocrisy of so called renunciates, as well as to reveal the inherent uselessness of endeavors for material happiness, his preaching was always effective and penetrating for his sincere hearers. Although outwardly almost illiterate and seemingly blind, scholars would approach him for the proper Siddhanta conclusion of different philosophical issues, and they always received perfect explanations. Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj was delighted to sit and hear the discourse of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur at Shurabhi Kunja, Navadvip, and he respected Thakur Bhaktivinoda as a Shiksha Guru. This was a sincere feeling as well as a proper observance of etiquette. For he took Babaji initiation from Srila Jagannath Das Babaji's disciple, Srila Bhagavad Das Babaji Maharaj, which made Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur the god brother of Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj Diksha Guru. Nevertheless, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur considered Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj his dear friend, and he took Babaji initiation from him in 1908. It was Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur who directed Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur to the lotus feet of Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji.
In the history which follows, it may not always be perfectly clear why Srila Das Babaji acted as he did, but we can at least be certain that acted according to the dictation of Krishna for the benefit of the world. By hearing about his unrelenting intolerance of all forms of hypocrisy and deception, and his tremendous austerity and devotion, we may hope to gain determination to practice Krishna consciousness with purity and to give up all forms of deceit and duplicity. Crookedness, hypocrisy, and deceit are anarthas, obstructive contaminations of the heart, which are represented by the demonic wizard Bakasura, who was killed by Krishna. This is described in the Sri Chaitanya Sikshamrita of Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur. The Thakur also states that without the destruction of deceit and crookedness, pure devotion to Krishna cannot arise. Therefore, we should pray that by recounting the glorious activities of Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, the eternal associate of the Lord, the personification of renunciation, who constantly exhibited powerful, ecstatic feelings of separation from Krishna, and the cutter of the pretenders and hypocrites with the acts of his unstinting mercy, that he will be pleased to bless us with a practical of his mercy. Being thus blessed with his divine grace, one can easily surmount the illusory web of crookedness and deceit and gain entrance to the kingdom of God. Mahat sevam devaram ahur vimuktes tamo dwaram yoshitam sangi sangam महान्तस् ते समचित्तः प्रशान्त विमन्यवः सुहृदः साधवो ये. One can attain the path of liberation from material bondage only by rendering service to highly advanced spiritual personalities. These personalities are impersonalists and devotees. Whether one wants to merge into the Lord's existence or wants to associate with the personality of Godhead, one should render service to the Mahatmas. For those who are not interested in such activities, who associate with people fond of women and sex, the path to hell is wide open. The Mahatmas are equipoised. They don't see any difference between one living being and another. They are very peaceful and are fully engaged in devotional service. They are devoid of anger and they work for the benefit of everyone. They don't behave in an abominable way. Abominable way. Such people are known as Mahatmas. Bhagavatam 5.5.2. The following accounts are taken from articles which first appeared in the Sajjana Soshani magazine. The magazine, originally published under the auspices of Śrīla Sachidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur and continued by Śrīla Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. The articles first appeared in 1917, shortly after the disappearance pastime of Śrīla Gaura Kishore Dāsa Bābājī Mahārāja, and bore the title Amar Prabhur Katha, which in English means Tales of My Spiritual Master. These articles were written by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and the original articles may be found in the Devananda Gaudiya Matha in Navadvip, West Bengal, and its branch in Mathura, Uttar Pradesh.
The Chaitanya Math later compiled these articles into a single small book upon which much of this volume is based. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur instructs us therein how bewildered souls, pregnant with arrogance and intoxicated with desires for sense gratification, approach the spiritual master pretentiously. The neophyte devotees are always in a precarious situation. Due to a lack of proper knowledge and sufficient faith, their tendency is to imitate exalted Vaishnavas. Such imitation, however, causes one to become degraded. One should not imitate the behavior of an advanced devotee or Mahabhagavata without being self-realized, for by such imitation one will eventually become degraded. The Nectar of Instruction, page 58. One must study Srila Gaura Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj's instructions in order to escape the jaws of false renunciation and offensive imitation. In this introduction to this article, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur wrote, I have been busy within this material world trying to bring sense gratification within the grasp of my hand. I have often thought that by obtaining the object of sense gratification, all my shortcomings will be fulfilled. I often attained different facets that were very rare indeed, but my own personal shortcomings were never mitigated. In this material world, I have had the association of very aristocratic persons. However, seeing their various deficiencies, I would not offer them praise. The most merciful Supreme Lord Sri Gaura Sundar, seeing me in such a lamentable condition at a time of adversity, gave permission to his two dearmost devotees, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Srila Gaura Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj, to grant their blessings to me. Because I was always intoxicated with the worldly false ego, wanting to be repeatedly praised, I deprived myself of my own real benefit. But because of the influence of my previous birth's activities in devotional service, I came into the association of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who was the form of my spiritual well-wisher. My spiritual master, Srila Gaura Kishore Das Babaji, would go and visit Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur and many times would reside with him. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, out of his compassion of other living entities, pointed out my spiritual master, Srila Gaura Kishore Das Babaji. Upon seeing my spiritual master, the extent of my worldly false ego diminished. I knew that all the other living entities who have taken the human form of life were also fallen and low like myself. but by gradually observing the spiritual character of my master, I realized that only a Vaishnava could reside in this material world and be of exemplary character. The two main sources of information for the live sketch of Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj were Gaura Parashad Charitavali and Gaudiya Vaishnava Jivana, two compilations of biographies of the Gaudiya Vaishnavacharyas. Additional biographical information has been found in the autobiography of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Svalikita Jivani, and other biographical works about Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur.
Sri Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj was a pure link in the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya between the late 18th and early 20th centuries. He carried and preserved the pure message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu intact. And he was the instructor of Thakura Bhaktivinoda, who inaugurated the preaching of Krishna consciousness throughout India and out to the Western world as well. He also initiated Bhagavad Dāsa Bābājī, the Veshaguru of Gaura Kiśora Das Bābājī, instructor Srila Gaura Kiśora Das Bābājī, the spiritual master of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and instructor Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur himself. According to some accounts, there were occasions at Surabhi Kunja, Thakur Bhaktivinoda Thakur's place of bhajana at Godrum Dvipa in Navadvip Dham, when 3 or 4 generations of pure Vaishnavas, including Srila Jagannath Das Bābājī, Thakur Bhaktivinoda, Gaura Kiśora Das Bābājī, and Srila Saraswati Thakura met together for Sankirtana and Krishna Katha. Some of these meetings and personalities were fictionized in Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's transcendental novel Jaiva Dharma. The Sankirtana performed by the spiritual colossi was the source of tremendous auspiciousness of the world. The transcendental gatherings were reminiscent of the meetings of the 6 Goswamis and their followers at the Radha Damodar temple in Vrindavan. All of the above mentioned personalities were pure, eternally liberated souls who had descended from Goloka for the benefit of the world. To inaugurate the renaissance of Bhakti and Sankirtana movement of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj's special contribution to this sublime resurgence of devotion to Krishna was his role in concert with Bhaktivinoda Thakur of discovering and authenticating the precise location of birthplace of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Thakur Bhaktivinoda referred to him as Vaishnava Sarvabhauma, the commander-in-chief of Vaishnavas. From all reports, he lived to be somewhere between 130 to 150 years old. And he listed in the Gaudiya Vaishnava succession Parampara as contemporary of Baladev Vidyabhushan. Although his Bābājī Veshaguru was by point of Diksha the disciple line of Srila Baladev Vidyabhushana. Be that as it may, he was the most prominent Acharya after Baladev Vidyabhushan and being a spiritual equal. And thus connected as his co-acharya, he was a perfectly self-realized soul and he was the beloved leader of Gaudiya Vaishnavas during the time of Thakura Bhaktivinoda, who accepted him as a Siksha Guru.
Gaura Kiśora Das Bābājī Maharaj, Family Life and Renunciation. Srila Gaura Kiśora Das Bābājī Maharaj appeared sometime in the 1830s in the district of Faridapur, adjacent to a place called Tepakhola, in the village of Vagyana in the East Bengal, or what is now known as Bangladesh. He appeared in that village, which is situated on the bank of the Padma River, as the son of a Vaishya, most probably called a Vamshidas. According to one biographer, however, Vamshidas was the name of Srila Gaura Kiśora Das before he took to the renounced order. During his boyhood, his mother and father arranged a marriage for him, and he remained in household affairs for more than 20 years. While a householder, he worked as a broker in the grain business, but even at that time, he exhibited his spirituality. After the demise of his wife, Srila Gaura Kiśora left his business and went to Vrindavan. There he approached Srila Bhagavad Das Bābājī, one of the foremost disciples of Srila Jagannath Das Bābājī Maharaj, and accepted from him the traditional Paramhansa Vaishnava Bābājī dress. After this, he became completely renounced and sojourned under trees in various parts of the 168-mile Brajamandala, circle of Vrindavan. He continuously acted thus for a period of approximately 30 years. During this time, he would sometimes travel to the holy places of pilgrimage in northern and western India, as well as the Gaura Mandala, the circle of Navadvip. He associated with Śrīla Swarupadas Babaji Maharaj in Jagannath Puri, whose ecstatic activities were recounted by Śrīla Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his autobiography. He also associated with Śrī Bhagavan Das Babaji in Kalna. He went to Kulia, the holy site of Śrīla Jagannath Das Babaji's bhajana, and associated with Śrīla Chaitanya Das Babaji. All of these Babajis were pure and exalted devotees. Śrīla Gaura Kiśora Das Babaji became very famous among the great devotees of Vrindavan and was awarded the appropriate title of Bhajananandi. Even though he received such honor, he never endeavored for even a modicum of material sense gratification and totally disapproved of the secret material desires of pseudo-renunciates. He was entirely removed from such inclinations and would perform his pure unalloyed devotional pastimes alone in a profound devotional mood. In the year 1897, during the month of Falgun, when he was in his 60s, and at the time when the Yoga Peeth, birthright of Sri Chaitanya, was revealed by the exertions of Śrīla Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Śrīla Gaura Kishore Prabhu proceeded to Navadvipa Dham from Vrindavan under the instruction of Śrīla Jagannath Das Bābājī Mahārāja. From this time until his disappearance, Śrīla Gaura Kishore Das Bābājī remained in Sri Navadvipa Dham, living in different villages and realizing their non-difference from the holy places of Vrindavan. He begged by gathering dry foodstuffs from the householders of the holy Dhama. He would sometimes offer those foodstuffs to the Supreme Personality of Godhead by the simple expedient of holding them in his hand. In order to cook, he would collect dry wood from the paths, and he would wash earthen pots discarded by the villagers along the roadside near the Ganges River on the occasion of eclipses. Due to the effects of an eclipse, such pots were considered impure and unusable. In order to clothe himself, he would go to the shore of the Ganges and collect and wash discarded cloths that had been used to cover corpses at the burning ghat. Thus, he always remained independent of the support of others, simply by utilizing items of no value to anyone else. In such a manner, he obtained the practical necessities of life. In 1897, Śrīla Bhaktivinoda Thakur constructed his place of bhajana on the bank of the Saraswati River at Godruma, the island of the 9 islands of Navadvipa Dham, which represents Kirtana, recitation of the names and glories of God. That ashrama, which was called Swananda Sukhada Kunja and consisted of a moderate 2-story house, several small outbuildings, and a walled compound, was a gathering place for exalted souls. Previously, it had been the site of Lord Nityananda's Namahatta, the place from whence Lord Nityananda inaugurated his preaching exploits in Bengal under the order of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Here, the Thakur recited and explained the Srimad Bhagavatam and other topics regarding the conclusions of devotional service. And Śrīla Gaura Kishora Das Bābājī Maharaj would come and hear those talks with great delight. The Thakur often cited the behavior of Śrīla Gaura Kishora Das to elucidate the meaning of the word nirapeksha, indifference. He often discussed the unequal renunciation, pure devotion, and attachment to Krishna that Bābājī Maharaj displayed. In the days of the Thakur's retirement, the two souls met and associated in great happiness. For some time, Bābājī Maharaj stayed in Surabhi Kunj and performed Hari Bhajana. His room, which adjoined the wall of the Kunja, has been preserved. Bābājī Maharaj displayed fervent enthusiasm upon hearing the discourses of the Thakur. His only possessions were the tulasi beads he wore around his neck and the tulasi mala, rosary, he kept in his hand for counting his rounds. He also kept a few books, such as Narottama Das Thakur's Prarthana and Prema Bhakti Chandrika. Sometimes he wore a torn cloth, and sometimes he went naked. At other times, he would utter harsh sounds of disgust for no apparent reason. Even though it appeared that Gaura Kishora Das Bābājī was not a learned Sanskrit scholar, still, the purport and conclusions of all scriptures were luminous in his heart and character. It was never possible for anyone to serve him, for he was never willing to accept any kind of service from any person. Whosoever witnessed his unearthly, genuine condition of renunciation was reminded of the pastimes of Sri Raghunath Das Goswami. All kinds of divine powers and opulences were always waiting at his command, ready to serve him. Sometimes such powers would be manifest in the form of his appearing to be omniscient, and he was always able to reveal the deceitful nature lying within the hearts of pretenders. Although a person resided outside his immediate purview, Śrīla Gaura Kishora Das could elaborately and scrutinizingly reveal the person's cheating nature because he was in direct contact with the super soul. This ability, however, was not his principal virtue. He exhibited the highest standard of devotion to the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna, and because of his exemplary character, He was recognized as the personification of the deepest degree of separation from Lord Sri Krishna. This is what distinguished him from most other Vaishnavas and what spread the luster of his lotus feet. So the Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur has written, many young, clever, old, learned, foolish, proud, and reasonable persons came into contact with Srila Gaura Kishore Prabhu, yet they could not realize his real identity. This is indeed the mystic opulence of the devotees of Lord Krishna. Many persons came to consult with Srila Gaura Kishore Prabhu about their insignificant desires. They would always get suggestions, but those suggestions were usually the cause of their disappointment. Innumerable persons accepted the Bābājī dress and acted as devotees of the Lord, but actually they were impostors, far away from being real sadhus. Srila Gaura Kishore never accepted such a false way of life. His sincerity was apparent in itself. His loving attitude was such that even when he obtained a very opulent offering, his renunciation predominated. Srila Gaura Kishore Das Bābājī never displayed any distaste for those persons who were inimical to him. He also never manifested any special affection for those very dear to him. He would often express himself saying, in this material world, I am all alone in my service to Lord Krishna. Everyone is worshipable by me. Another noteworthy transcendental topic is that many materialistic, foolish persons masquerading as devotees and imitating pure devotion would come and surround him. They would consider that they were the dear objects of his affection, while they engaged their minds in so many worldly sense objects. Sri Gaura Kishore Prabhu would never display any intention of driving them away and also no symptoms of a compromising attitude.
In Swananda Sukada Kunja, in 1898, Srila Gaura Kishore Das Bābājī Mahārāja, the embodiment of the highest boon in the succession of the Rūpānuga Sampradaya, arrived singing in a plaintive voice at the newly constructed Swananda Kunja. This transcendental crown jewel of the renounced order was wearing a cap made of tiger skin and was carrying a basket containing various items employed by him in his devotional service. After his arrival, he offered Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati 4 or 5 pieces of rope upon which to chant rounds of Harinama, a tilaka stamp with the initials of Hare Kṛṣṇa, Ha and Kr, and the tiger skin cap and other paraphernalia for worship of the Lord. Bābājī Mahārāja had previously received the basket and cap from his spiritual master, Śrīla Bhagavad Das Bābājī. That same year, in the month of Magha, Bābājī Mahārāja initiated Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakura. The great Vaishnava often came to Swananda Kunja to hear Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura's explanations of the Srimad Bhagavatam. He would usually arrive around 3 o'clock in the afternoon and leave around 5 o'clock. On several occasions, he spent the night in a corner of Swananda Kunja in a small hut with a tin roof. Sometimes he would stay in Pradyumna Kunja, and then again he would fast and under no circumstances accept prasada. In this way, he would either fast, accept prasada, or cook for himself. Sometimes he would behave as if afflicted by the disease called Siroraga, insanity, and by blindness. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura arranged a balanced diet for him, but to his dismay, Bābājī Mahārāja continued to follow his program of unsurpassable renunciation, disregarding the aforementioned diet. He eventually lost his sight almost fully in both eyes. In the year 1908, Srila Gaura Kishora thoroughly lost his physical vision. In the following year, he stopped traveling and resided principally at Navadvipa at Pradyumna Kunja and sometimes stayed at Godruma with the Thakura. Pradyumna Kunja had previously been owned by Sarachanandra Vasu of South Calcutta, but that gentleman died and the Kunja was inhabited by Bābājī Mahārāja. When he sojourned with the Thakura, he would chant japa and perform his devotional service too. Sometimes becoming aloof from external bodily consciousness, he would be unaware of whether he was dressed or not, and he would go to swim in the Saraswati river with his clothes open. Thereafter, he would enter his small bhajana kutira and in a very deep voice would begin chanting the names of the gopis of Vrindavan.
The illusory universe. When it seemed that Gaura Kishora Babaji's eyesight was deteriorating, Srila Saraswati Thakura requested him to go to Calcutta for treatment. Thakura Bhakti Vinoda also repeatedly requested him to go there. But Srila Gaura Kishora would reply, I will never go to the illusory universe, Calcutta. Once Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura informed Babaji Maharaj that his servant Srila Saraswati Thakura would stay with him in Calcutta and thus Babaji Maharaj would not have to suffer any inconvenience there. Upon hearing this, Srila Gaurakishora Prabhu replied, I will never accept service from Prabhu, rather I shall die by drowning. If I drown myself in the Ganges, I will become a ghost, so I will drown myself in the Saraswati. Repeating the statement, Srila Gaurakishore then left post haste, running towards the Saraswati river, which flowed close to the entrance to Swananda Kunja. Srila Saraswati Thakur pursued him, trying to dissuade him humbly and repeatedly requesting him to return. After this incident, he was not to be found for 45 days. Then, just as suddenly, he reappeared at the Swananda Kunja and announced, I can't achieve Sri Krishna by killing myself. Nevertheless, I cannot tolerate anyone serving me. Although requested hundreds of times to take medicine, Srila Gaurakishora never consented. Srila Gaurakishora always observed the Ekadashi fast rigidly, rejecting even water. On other days, he often ate dried, cracked rice soaked in water with chilies, or at other times, simply earth from the bank of the Ganges. His renunciation was not artificial, however, but was symptomatic of his indifference to worldly existence. Sri Mayapura. From 1907 to 1908, Srila Saraswati Thakura lived in Mayapura at the Yoga Pita. It was there that the Adokshaja deity of Srila Jagannatha Mishra, the father of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, was later unearthed. Before construction of the Yoga Pita temple began, Gaura Kishordas Babaji went there from Kulia on many occasions. During this period, he gave many instructions to Srila Saraswati Thakura, and Saraswati Thakura engaged in his Guru's service. Once, although externally completely blind, Babaji Maharaj arrived alone at Sridham Mayapura at the Yoga Pita in the early hours of the morning. Later that day, Srila Saraswati Thakur, amazed to see him and realizing that he must somehow have crossed the Ganges in the dead of the night and walked several miles, inquired, When did you arrive? Babaji Maharaj replied, I arrived at about 2 in the morning. Completely astonished, Srila Saraswati Thakur then asked, What was it that brought you here last night, and how was it possible for you to see the path? Babaji Maharaj answered, Someone showed me the proper way. Srila Saraswati Thakur replied, We can see with the external vision, but you appear to be blind. Who would bring you such a long distance by the hand, and then upon arriving here, suddenly leave in the middle of the night? How is it that you were able to come? It must have been Sri Krishna who personally brought you here. Hearing this supposition, Srila Babaji Maharaj began to laugh slightly. The fact was that in those days one could not walk from Kulia to Mayapur because there were no footpaths and one could not take a boat because there were no landing places. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati again inquired, Who brought you across the river? Srila Gaurakishore answered in the same amused manner, saying, Someone took me across the river. His disciple could then understand that the mysterious person was none other than Vrajanandana Sri Krishna.
The real and pretender Bhajananandi. Once, while Srila Gaura was residing in Dharmashala in Kulia, Srila Saraswati Thakur asked him how he had lived at Braja and many questions about the residents of Vrindavan and the various devotees who were performing solitary worship there. Srila Saraswati Thakur specifically asked about the Bhajananandis, who were reputed to be perfectly self-realized souls. Upon hearing the question, Srila Gaura Goswami laughed again and again and told Saraswati Thakur they are all impostors. One of the Babājīs in question, who lived at Kusama Sarovar in Vrindavan, was famed as a great Bhajananandis. He had a few disciples who were also reputed to be perfectly self-realized. But Bābājī Maharaj did not even slightly agree to their being genuine. After some time, these pretenders became afflicted with leprosy of the throat and left their bodies after suffering terribly. They had resided in the Dham with their intelligence bent upon sense gratification, and they had behaved offensively towards Bābājī Maharaj.
reception, and actual residence in the Holy Dham. Once, a young devotee, very anxiously desiring to perform devotional service and reside in the Holy Dham of Navadvip, came and revealed his intentions to Bābājī Mahārāja. This young devotee had made arrangements to remain in the Dham as a physician, to buy medicines by begging for the money, and to thus treat the sick and infirm. He considered that in this way he would be performing his bhajana and also simultaneously performing great welfare activity. To receive confirmation of his plans, he had come to consult Śrīla Bābājī Mahārāja. When he arrived and presented his proposal, he quoted the following verses describing Murari Gupta in Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Leela 10.50 to 51. Pratigraha nahi kare na laya karadhana atma vritti kari kare kutumba harana chikishta चिकित्सा करेन यार हे इह सदाय देह रोगो भाव रोगे दुई तारक क्षय. Srila Murari Gupta never accepted charity from friends, nor did he accept money from anyone. He practiced as a physician and maintained his family with his earnings. As Murari treated his patients, by his mercy, both their bodily and spiritual disease subsided. Srila Bābājī Mahārāja could understand the young man's inherent insincerity and the pretension of his waiting to live in the Mama, and revealed the defects of his plan by saying, Murari Gupta is an eternal associate of Lord Chaitanya and is always resident in the Holy Dham. He never expressed any intention to stay in the Lord's Dham by unjustly supporting himself so as to enjoy sense gratification. He never, at the expense of any temple, supported his family, nor was he ever interested in earning money to fill his stomach. He neither accepted charity from his friends nor anyone else. He was the reservoir of ecstatic love of Lord Gaura. By his mercy, one can achieve love for Gaura. Whomever he would treat would become completely free from all disease and obtain the love for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Without following the standard of his character, if Murari Gupta's behavior is imitated in a motivated way, then one will be forced to suffer the results of his misdeeds. You are suffering from the disease of material existence yourself. So, how will you properly treat others? You should incessantly and earnestly pray for the mercy of Śrīla Murari Gupta. Then you will be able to understand what real benevolence is. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has stated that sincere intelligence is exhibited by chanting the holy name of Hari, giving up all pretension. Those who chant with material intentions are considered unintelligent. You should renounce this sort of thinking and devote yourself seriously to the process of hearing and chanting the glories of the Supreme Lord. Otherwise, your devotion will simply be lust and everything will be ruined. The desire to administrate a free medicine for the sake of personal prestige and the desire to reside in the Dhamma have nothing in common. A person interested in fruitive work can never live in the Dham. Hearing these instructions, the doctor asked, what should I do? Srila Gaura Kiśora Das Bābājī replied, if you actually want to benefit for residing in the Dham, then you should first give up these ideas you are entertaining. Abandon this misconceived notion of benefiting materialistic persons by distributing free medical treatment. Those who are resolute in performing worship unto the Supreme Lord Hari will never discharge any unfavorable activities, and they will perform only activities favorable to devotional service. Beyond this, all other activities will be the cause of deep conditioning. If you want to support yourself in the way you have planned, then you should leave the Dham and return to your former residence. Do not reside within the supreme abode of the Absolute Truth, Sri Krishna, and earn your livelihood deceitfully. Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada commented on the two verses above cited as follows. It should be noted that a grihastha householder must not make his livelihood by begging from anyone. Every householder of the higher castes should engage himself in his own occupational duty as a Brahmana, Kshatriya or Vaishya, but he should not engage in the service of others, for this is the duty of a Shudra. One should simply accept whatever he earns by his own profession. Murari Gupta could treat both bodily and spiritual disease because he was a physician by profession and a great devotee of the Lord in terms of spiritual advancement. This is an example of service to humanity. One disease which is called Adhyatmika or material disease pertains to the body, but the main disease is spiritual. The living entity is eternal, but somehow or other, when in contact with the material energy, is subjected to the repetition of birth, death, old age, and disease. The physicians of the modern day should learn from Murari Gupta. Although modern philanthropic physicians open gigantic hospitals, there are no hospitals to cure the material disease of the spirit soul. As pointed out by Bābājī Maharaj, Murari Gupta was an eternal resident of Dhamma and an eternal associate of the Lord. Thus, his activities should not be imitated by one who does not have the power to cure the disease of material existence.
Tenub Bābājī. A neophyte devotee who had taken the dress of a Bābājī often came to converse with Bābājī Maharaj. On one such occasion, he decided to take up residence in the Holy Dham. He approached a certain queen who was living in Kulia and who owned land thereabouts, in order to purchase 3/4 of an acre of land from her. Upon hearing this news, Bābājī Maharaj commented, "The supreme abode of the Lord is transcendental. How is it possible that this queen has become a landowner in Dham? How is it that she is entitled to sell the new Baba portion of the land of the Dham? All the jewels found within the universe are not valuable enough to purchase even one speck of dust in the Dham. Therefore, how can any landowner amass enough wealth to become the owner of the plot of the transcendental abode of the Sri Navadvip Dham? Has this new Baba, for the exchange of the practice of devotional service, become entitled to a portion of land in Navadvip Dham? Anyone with such materially tinged intelligence is very offensive and far away from actual residence within the Dham. Those persons whose attitude is thus tainted by materialistic intelligence, who think that the Dham is part of the material universe, are considered by the devotees of the Supreme Lord to be sahajiyas or cheap impostors." Bābājī Maharaj. Gaura Kishora's Bābājī Maharaj's analysis of this incident is very significant and fully exposes the mistaken attitude of the neophyte devotee. Nothing within the material creation can be possessed by anyone but the Supreme Proprietor. Isa vasyam midam sarvam yat kincha jagatyam jagat. And everything animate or inanimate that is within the universe is controlled and owned by the Supreme Lord. Ishopanishad 1. It is the greatest illusion to imagine that any facet of the unlimitedly valuable and sublime spiritual realm, which is composed of Chintamani or the Philosopher's Stone, is within the jurisdiction of our controlling power. As a matter of convection, one may say that he owns something, but the real proprietor must never be forgotten. Otherwise, such a conception becomes a source of bewilderment. Śrīla Bhaktivinoda Thakur purchased land in the Dham, but he was never censured by Bābājī Maharaj, for he perfectly understood who the real possessor was and considered himself merely the custodian of such land. One cannot achieve true residence in the Dham by purchasing a ticket or a plot of land. Śrīla Narottam Das Thakur has explained the actual process of entering the residence in transcendental abodes such as Navadvip and Vrindavan. Vishaya chariye kabe shuddha habe manakabe hama herabo Shri Vrindavan. When one has forsworn material sense gratification and his mind is completely purified, then he is able to behold Vrindavan. Deception and devotional service. Once a resident of Bangladesh, then East Bengal, who was a very wealthy landlord, scholar and Brahmana, and reputed to be a great devotee of the Lord, came with a friend to see Śrīla Bābājī Maharaj. The landowner appeared to be so deeply absorbed in devotional ecstasy that his friend had to support him as he walked, lest he fell down due to excessive trembling of the body. When the pair arrived before Bābājī Maharaj, two other persons in the assembly recognized the famous landlord, immediately received him as an advanced devotee of the Lord. They carefully offered their obeisances to him and arranged a sitting place. At that time, Śrīla Gaura Kishoradas Bābājī Maharaj, in his pastime of blindness, inquired, "Who has come?" The friend of the landowner introduced his companion by glowingly describing his erudition and devotion, and he is being disinterested in material sense gratification despite possessing unlimited wealth. He then described how, only a fortnight earlier, a thief had come and stolen 45,000 rupees from the landlord's house. Despite suffering such a setback, the landowner, knowing devotion to be much more significant, had come to obtain Srila Bābājī Mahārāj's Transcendental Darshan. The friend added, I am his friend. He has left all material sense gratification and keeps only my association. You will be able to realize his greatness by conversing with him. He once asked me a question about a confidential exchange between Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Srila Ramananda Raja, found in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. I told him that only Gaura Kishora's Babaji could properly answer his question and certainly no one else. We have already been to see many learned persons in this area, and yet we cannot come to an agreement about the meaning of this conversation. We think that only you are able to explain it properly. After the introduction was complete, Srila Bābājī Mahārāja replied, I will tell you a process by which you can understand the conclusion of this conversation, but before trying to understand these confidential topics between Lord Chaitanya and Ramananda Rai, you should renounce their association of this rascal impostor, the landowner, and take shelter of a pure devotee of the Lord. You should hear the Chaitanya Charitamrita 100 times in the association of authentic devotees of the Lord. In this way, being absorbed in devotional ecstasy, you will be able to realize the purport of these conversations. At the present moment, all the devotees here want to perform congregational chanting of the holy name of the Lord. We don't have time to discuss any other topics. Having thus spoken, Srila Bābājī Mahārāja very loudly requested everyone perform Harinam Sankirtan. Everyone then began to congregationally chant the Lord's holy name. After hearing the statement of Bābājī Mahārāja, the proud landlord and his friend immediately left that place. Later that evening, when almost everyone had left, some members of the assembly commented to Bābājī Mahārāja, that very learned landowner was absorbed in devotional ecstasy. We could not see any manifestations of material consciousness in him. He was devoid of worldly consciousness. Another person sitting nearby, who had always heard that Srila Gaura Kishora's Babaji was very straightforward with everyone, inquired. That person was so immersed in various loving devotional ecstasies that he could not even walk by his own efforts. How is that you can say he was not on the highest platform of bhakti? Srila Bābājī Mahārāja replied, saying, after speaking with him for a few moments, I could understand that he had no good intentions in his performance of devotional service. One cannot measure a person's devotion by the approval of the general mass. If a person is not serious in his devotional practice, then even if he exhibits the symptoms of renunciation, no attachment, and various ecstasies, still he should not be considered to have a real renunciation or detachment. As soon as difficult test comes, his forced renunciation will cease. Detachment seeks out those who are actually fixed in their intention to perform devotional service. When performing practical devotional service, we should never exhibit our devotional ecstasies. One should perform a devotional service in such a way that his deep attachment to the Lord increases within his heart. Even if one displays hundreds and hundreds of exhibitions of external attachment, he will not be blessed by the Lord if he does not develop an internal loving attachment to him. If one genuinely possesses a deep loving attitude, then Krishna himself will approach and claim such an advanced devotee. Whoever is not enticed by the fragrance of unflinching devotional service and whose heart is filled with material desires will wear different types of external bodily dress. Krishna is proportionately aloof or available according to the degree of one's surrender. If one is deeply immersed in devotional attachment to Lord Hari, then even while suffering distressing diseases or other material miseries, he will still remain absorbed in transcendental loving service to the Lord. If one can fast and chant Hare Kṛṣṇa both day and night, and when you can always cry out with desire for the service of Rishabhanu Radharani without revealing it to others, then Sri Krishna, who is very dear to Srimati Radharani, will call you to take his shelter. Srila Prabhupada, strictly following the line of Srila Gaura Kishora's Bābājī Mahārāja's instruction, never made any sort of public display of ecstasy, and when his ecstatic emotions occasionally overpowered him, he would endeavor mightily to bring them in rein. This mood can be compared to that of Daruka, Krishna's charioteer, who was once fanning the Lord with chamara, yaktail whisk. While thus engaged, he became overwhelmed with ecstatic love for the Lord. The symptoms the symptoms became manifest in his body. Srila Prabhupada comments, Daruka was so serious about his service that he checked all of these manifestations of ecstatic love and considered them hindrances to his engagement. He did not care very much for these manifestations, although they automatically developed. It is not that when one experiences spiritual ecstasy that he is required to put it out on display for the edification of ordinary persons. In India, it is very common for sahajiyas, those who take spiritual lives cheaply, to make an elaborate public display of their ecstasies. Such displays are pair reflections of spiritual sentiments and are exhibited with material motives. This was clearly the case with the landlord who approached Srila Gaura Kishoradas Babaji. In Vrindavan and Navadvip, it is not at all uncommon that such a person will enter a temple with an assistant or even a crowd of followers and go before the deity. Seeing the deity and hearing the kirtan, he begins to dance wildly and finally faints, and the assistant or group of followers then minister to him with great sympathy and concern. Thereafter a curious throng of pilgrims gathers and witness the pathetic scene. When a sufficient crowd has gathered, the great soul revives and is assisted with great difficulty beyond the temple confines, where he hopes some of the unfortunate spectators will agree to become his followers and patrons. As Srila Gorakishoras Babaji has demonstrated, the best produce for dealing with such persons is to neglect them.
The materialist grains. A lawyer named Bhattacharya came to visit Bābājī Mahārāja. He was living in the Venice city and had contracted a certain caste Goswami on a monthly basis to supply him food. When the lawyer approached Bābājī Mahārāja, he was asked, "What arrangement do you have for your foodstuffs?" The lawyer replied, "I have arranged to receive my foodstuffs in the house of certain Vaishnavas and Brahmanas." Srila Gaura Kiśora Dāsa Bābājī then answered, "Give up eating the cooked rice. You should cook for yourself and eat that. Those persons from whom we are accepting food grains eat meat and maintain their service to Lord Chaitanya in devious ways. Their activities are most offensive because they know that what they are doing is wrong. Those persons who have no fear of an offense they create to the Supreme Lord should never even be spoken to. Otherwise, devotional service will be destroyed." Sometime later, the lawyer brought several sweets and offered them to Srila Gaura Kishora Prabhu. He prayerfully requested Bābājī Mahārāja to accept his offering. Srila Bābājī Mahārāja then told him, "I never accept sweets." Bhattacharya replied, "There is nothing higher than accepting food that the Lord has directly accepted." Srila Bābājī Mahārāja sharply retorted, "Whoever eats fish is like a prostitute. If someone has perverted desires and offers foodstuffs to Lord Chaitanya, whose preparations can never be accepted as the prasada of the Supreme Lord, because the Lord does not partake of them. Whoever is not a sincere devotee of the Lord cannot understand what a non-devotee is. Even if one offers foodstuffs to the Supreme Lord, if one has perverted intentions, then that offering is never accepted. If one offers the covering of the banana flowers because he likes the taste himself, the offering is not accepted by the Supreme Lord. To other foodstuffs to the Supreme Lord that have been contaminated by one's lusty desires should be considered a great offense. If preparations favored by the great devotees of the Lord are offered, then the offering is considered proper. Krishna tastes foodstuffs that have been tasted by the lips of his pure devotees. If one accepts the grains of a sinful person, then his mind becomes impure. One should think, my worship of the Lord has not fructified it. How can I obtain the service of a pure devotee of the Lord? In this way, with a heart full of grief, if one takes banana peels and the discarded skin of an eggplant and boils them without salt and offers them, this attitude of full surrender will cause those foodstuffs to become Mahaprasada. One should think, my worship to the Lord has not yet manifested. The pure devotee of the Lord accepts nice foodstuffs, but my doing so would only impede my devotion. What will happen to me if I continue eating sumptuously and wearing luxurious clothes? Thus, one is directed by Bābājī Mahārāja not to accept food cooked by lustful persons, especially for those who know the actual standard of behavior expected of devotees of Lord Krishna, Sri Krishna, but who nevertheless indulge in illicit activities. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu instructed Srila Swarupa Damodara Goswami as follows: when one eats food offered by a materialistic man, one's mind becomes contaminated, and when the mind becomes contaminated, one is unable to think of Krishna properly. When one accepts an invitation from a person contaminated by the material mode of passion, the person who offers the food and the person who accepts it are both mentally contaminated. Chaitanya Charitamrita Antya Leela 6.278 to 279. In the purport to the first of these verses, Srila Prabhupada cites Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur as a commentary saying, people who are materialistically inclined and sahajiyas or so-called Vaishnavas who take everything very casually are both Vishayi, materialist. Eating food offered by them causes contamination, and as a result of such contamination, even a serious devotee becomes like a materialistic man. There are 6 kinds of association: giving charity, accepting food, offering food, talking confidently, and inquiring confidently. One should very carefully avoid associating with both these sahajiyas, who are sometimes known as Vaishnavas, and the non-Vaishnavas or Avaishnavas. Their association changes the transcendental devotional service of Lord Krishna into sense gratification, and when sense gratification enters the mind of a devotee, he is contaminated. The materialistic person who aspires after sense gratification cannot properly think of Krishna. Aside from avoiding food prepared by sensualists, one should also take care not eat simply for the satisfaction of one's tongue. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita Antya 6.227, it is stated, Jivara lalasaya iti uttidaya shishnodara parayana Krishna nahipaya. That person who runs here and there seeking to gratify his palate and who is always attached to the desires of his stomach and genitals is unable to attain Krishna. Srila Jagadananda Pandita and Lord Chaitanya have both instructed those serious about spiritual advancement to avoid dressing very nicely or taking very palatable foodstuffs. Lord Chaitanya had stated, Balana khaibe ara balana paribe. Do not dress luxuriously and do not eat delicious foodstuffs. Chaitanya Charitamrita Antya 6.236. Srila Jaganananda Pandita has instructed, echoing the words of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Balana khaibe ara balana paribe hridayate Radha Krishna sarvadas sevibe. Do not eat luxurious dishes or dress in fine garments, but always remain humble and serve their Lordship Sri Sri Radha Krishna in your heart of hearts. Prema Vivarta, Chapter 7. Srila Gaura Kiśora Dāsa Bābājī Mahārāja instructs us to think that our devotion is not pure and that only pure devotees can safely accept delicious Mahaprasada and to thus always eat frugally. He suggests that if one prepares something not generally considered edible, for example, banana peels and skin of eggplants boiled with salt, but offers it with genuine humility, then it will certainly be transformed into Mahaprasada by the Lord's accepting it.
The love of Srila Gaura Kiśora Dāsa Bābājī for Sri Mayapura Dhama. Srila Bābājī Mahārāja exhibited an unmatched, uncompromising spirit toward anything opposing the real conclusions of bhakti. He was above all mundane thought, and one cannot possibly understand why he acted as he did unless one rigidly follows in the footsteps of the Paramahamsa devotees of the Lord. Thus, we should not be surprised that some persons who had his audience hundreds of times were never blessed with his special grace, while others received his mercy at once. One day, a householder devotee from Mayapura went to Kulia to get the association of Srila Bābājī Mahārāja. The Paramahamsa was seated in a chair made of reeds just within the door of his kutira or cottage. When the Grahastha approached him, Srila Gaura Kiśora nonchalantly closed the door. At that, the devotee informed an attendant of Srila Bābājī Mahārāja that he wished to see him. Bābājī Mahārāja replied, if he wants to have my darshana, then he must give 2 rupees. The attendant received the money from the Grahastha and duly informed Srila Gaura Kiśora Dāsa Bābājī. Bābājī Mahārāja then opened the door of the kutira and said, please have a look. The Grahastha remained some distance away from the kutira and respectfully offered his prostrated obeisances. But By his own sweet voice, Srila Bābājī Mahārāja drew him closer, affectionately took his hands within his and said, "We have come from Mayapura, the place where my Supreme Master Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has appeared. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has sent you here, so therefore I have a few words to say to you. Sri Chaitanya will certainly listen to this. You should take shelter of Krishna by always chanting his holy name. There will then be no more obstructions in your life." Whenever Srila Gaura Kiśora Dāsa Bābājī Mahārāja saw the residents of Sri Mayapura, would always show some special favor and with affection say, "The residents of the holy Dhama." It was always seen that if someone tried to offer great wealth, he should personally remain indifferent, but then again he would request different persons to help him by giving him money and other paraphernalia for his service to the Lord's devotees resident in the Dhama. One who takes birth where Lord Dhamas is understood to have done so as a result of attaining to a higher standard of devotion to the Lord. To take such a birth is an indication that one is practically qualified to be a resident of the spiritual world, and thus his good fortune and good qualities are incalculable. Although such residents may externally appear to be conditioned souls, they are nevertheless spontaneously attracted to the Lord. Even if they perform impious activities within the boundaries of the Dhamma, they are not to be adjudged ordinary conditioned souls. Srila Prabhupada has explained that even if someone comes to Vrindavana or Mayapura from outside the Dhamma, lives and dies there, but performs sinful activities there, still he will have to take only one birth as one birth more as an animal. After that birth, he is promoted to the spiritual world. He comments, devotees like Goswamis living in Vrindavana, who purposely commit some sinful activities, are born in the bodies of dogs, monkeys, and tortoises in that holy land. Thus, they take on these lower life forms for a short while, and after they give up those animal bodies, they are again promoted to the spiritual world. Such punishment is only for a short period, and it is not due to past karma. Bhagavatam 5.26 purport. Srila Gaura Kiśora Dāsa Bābājī was fully aware of the unique status of the Dhamavasis, residents of the Dhama, and thus he gave them special consideration and respect. Bābājī Maharaj further teaches us that it is better not to accept charity for maintaining one's own comfort and personal convenience, though one can enthusiastically do so in order to serve Vaishnavas. Displaying ecstatic symptoms. On one occasion, Srila Bābājī Mahārāja was sitting within his bhajana kutira in Sri Navadvipa Dhama, loudly chanting Hare Kṛṣṇa. Other persons who had assembled there were also chanting. At this time, someone came and began to display different ecstatic symptoms such as crying. Some of the assembled devotees thought, "Lo, that person has attained the highest state of devotional ecstasy by chanting the glories of the Lord." Srila Gaura Kiśora Dāsa Bābājī, however, immediately requested the man to leave. Some of the onlookers became disturbed by this and left. Bābājī Mahārāja commented, "One who has actually attained love of Godhead will never display the symptoms thereof, but will keep them hidden from the general populace. A chaste wife becomes very embarrassed when she has to show any part of her body in public, and thus she keeps her body thoroughly covered. In the same way, when one has a real devotion for the Supreme Lord and becomes elevated to the love of Godhead, he always feels embarrassed to exhibit symptoms of ecstasy and always keeps such symptoms hidden. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu demonstrated this principle on numerous occasions. Upon meeting Srila Ramananda Raya by the banks of the Godavari, for example, he embraced him and felt so much ecstasy that along with Ramananda, he was overwhelmed with spiritual emotion. However, in consideration of the fact that Ramananda Raya was the governor of Madras and was accompanied by many persons who could not understand such transcendental dealings, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu restrained himself. On another occasion, when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu met with Vallabhacharya near Prayaga, he was overwhelmed with ecstatic feelings. But he again restrained himself, feeling bashful in the presence of a person who, though exalted, was not his intimate associate. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu felt great ecstatic love when they began discussing Krishna, but the Lord checked his feelings because he felt shy before Vallabha Bhatta. Although the Lord restrained himself externally, ecstatic love raged within. There was no checking that. Vallabha Bhatta was astonished to detect this.
The sharp words of the sadhu. Śrīla Gaura Kṛṣṇa Bābājī Mahārāja always gave beneficial instruction to persons who approached him with faith and humility, no matter what their spiritual status. On one such occasion, a seeker went to Bābājī Mahārāja to hear topics concerning the Supreme Lord, but he heard some harsh words from him instead. The seeker therefore resolved to never go near Bābājī Mahārāja again. After some time, however, having been stricken with a distressed and troubled mind, he suddenly returned to see Bābājī Mahārāja. Śrīla Bābājī Mahārāja instantly realized the reason for his depression, told him, "Oh, you have left the association of devotees where topics about Krishna are discussed, and now you are living in a secluded place and performing a solitary worship of Krishna." When one hears the topics of Supreme Lord in the company of devotees, then one becomes freed from Maya's net of illusion. But if one performs worship of Lord in a secluded place, not in association with devotees, one becomes caught by the illusory energy. As a consequence, instead of topics about the Supreme Lord possessing the heart, the mundane subject matters will occupy it instead. A seeker replied, "I thought it better to reside in a secluded place and perform my own individual worship than to become disturbed by hearing the sharp words of sadhu." Śrīla Bābājī Mahārāja replied, "Please take note that those sadhus who speak harsh words to drive away the witch of illusory energy or the actually only the real devotees of Krishna and friends of the living entities. The conditioned living being experiences the distressful quarreling of his wife and close relatives and is rudely treated by them until death. Yet he never desires to leave their company. On the other hand, he absorbs himself in trying to appease and serve them. But when a devotee of the Lord, who is about the desirous of living entities' ultimate welfare, chides him just once with instructions meant to drive away Maya, then the conditioned soul immediately makes plan to leave the saintly person for its entire life. If you actually want to perform devotional service properly, then you must accept the harsh language of the sadhu as a medicine by which Maya can be given up. By this, one can attain the necessary spiritual advancement to successfully chant the holy name. The bound souls are prepared to accept the ultimate abuse from their family members, but not a single sharp word from a sadhu who attempts to cut their attachment to illusory existence. The materialistic wife and family members induce a man to work like an ass, and meanwhile deride him for not fulfilling all their demands. Yet, while the family may legitimately plunder a man and denounces him bitterly for his shortcomings, the acquiescent victim is not in the least able to tolerate the words which might awaken him to reality of his situation. Śrīla Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakura described the power of sadhu in an essay called Search for Truth as follows. There is no doubt that the words of sadhu possesses the power of destroying the evil associates with him. There are many things which we do not disclose to the sadhu. The real sadhu makes us speak out what we keep concealed in our hearts. He then applies the knife. The very word sadhu has no meaning other than this. He stands in front of the block with uplifted sacrificial knife in his hand. The sensuous desire of men are like goats. The sadhu stands there to kill those desires by the merciful stroke of the keen edge of the sacrificial knife in the form of unpleasant language. If a sadhu turns into my flatterer, then he does me harm, he becomes my enemy. If he gives us flattery, then we are led to the road that brings enjoyment but no real well-being. Without association of devotees, one will most certainly be overwhelmed by the illusory energy, and his thoughts will naturally turn to gratifying his senses. During the discussions between Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Ramananda Rai, Lord Chaitanya inquired, out of all auspicious and beneficial activities, this is best for living entity. Which is best for living entity? Ramananda Rai replied, the only auspicious activity is association with the devotees of Krishna. And in Srimad Bhagavatam 11.2.30, it is stated, we are asking the most perfect welfare activity from you. I think that in this material world, the association with devotees, even if it to be for a moment, it is a greatest treasure house for mankind. The importance of materially conditioned devotees associating with saintly person has been stressed by all the Vaishnava authorities. Even those who seem to shun the company of others in order to prosecute their solitary worship, although it is a fact that great Paramahamsas like Srila Madhavendra Puri perform such solitary worship in complete purity, this cannot be imitated by neophytes.
The householder's vow. A newly married devotee and his wife once went to pray for the mercy of Śrīla Gaura Dāsa Bābājī. Bābājī Mahārāja instructed the husband, saying, if you actually want to perform devotional service, then you must live separately from your wife and thus not depending on one another, chant the glories of the Lord. After hearing these instructions, the newlyweds did as they were advised. A few days passed, and that devotee came again to Bābājī Maharaj, who then asked, are you and your wife taking your footsteps together or separately? The husband told him, we are living separately and carrying on our worship as you instructed, but we take our footsteps together. Bābājī Maharaj then inquired, what did you have today? The newly wed man answered, we had very nice vegetables, the best dal and fried eggplant. Bābājī Maharaj then explained, if you only give up the external connection with your wife, that is not sufficient because you are associating with her within. You have not been able to give up the finest foodstuffs prepared by your wife. So, how will you be able to worship the Lord? Your wife is communicating with you through the medium of what she has cooked. Shame, shame. Even though you are acting as if you are chanting the Lord's holy name, still you are desiring the stems of the finest vegetables. Do you think that after someone suffers a loss of 1 lakh of rupees, he will be satisfied accepting only a handful of rice? Although he may gradually become accustomed to accepting the rice as a daily practice, still he will always think of the money he has lost. Even if one were to give such a person the most delicious foodstuffs, because he will always be anxious about what he has lost. He will not be able to put the longing for it from his heart. You have lost that which is invaluable, your devotional service to the Supreme Lord. Thus, how can you become absorbed in eating such nice foodstuffs? As for your wife, externally you are disassociated from her, yet you are maintaining attachment within. Householders may feel intimidated by Bābājī Maharaj's uncompromising judgment of the above mentioned marriage. Fortunately, he gave other instructions that resolve the problem of the material attachment that inevitably arises within a marriage. These instructions are dealt with below. Renunciation for Krishna's pleasure and false renunciation. A married man present during Bābājī Maharaj's conversation with the newly wedded husband inquired from the Paramahamsa as follows. We see that there are many Vaishnavas living with their wives who perform devotional service to Lord Hari. Will any benefit occur to such persons? Srila Bābājī Maharaj replied, the living entity is the eternal servant of Lord Krishna. But when the conditioned soul looks upon his wife and sons, he simply sees their material forms. If one does not have the eye of devotion, one can never perceive his real identity as the eternal servant of Krishna. The bound souls always have the inclination to enjoy their wives and children. These days, the living entities do not like to hear the topics of the Supreme Lord or to get the association of their Lord's devotees. If one does not attain the spiritual energy given by the chanting of the holy name of the Lord, then one will become attracted by his wife and offspring. Then again, some persons feign detachment from their wives, children, and sense pleasures. This kind of external renunciation is like the renunciation of monkeys who are not actually renounced, although they apparently eschew clothing, proper shelter, and the other trappings of sensory emolument. The abnegation of the monkey like renunciates Vairagis is simply a pretense. The genuine Vaishnava will never maintain an attitude of sense gratification towards his wife. Rather, he will always regard himself as the servant of Krishna and the bona fide Guru. Those actually desirous of performing Hari Bhajana but in whose hearts the weeds of material desires grow, and who are unable to give up excessive attachment to wife and children, should also come and hear from the pure devotees chant Hare Krishna and perform congregational chanting. In this way, they can quickly become detached from the inclination to enjoy their wives and children. They will gradually realize that if one completely surrenders to Krishna, then one will attain all auspiciousness. As long as one remains in bodily consciousness, one cannot obtain the mercy of Lord Krishna. The extension of bodily consciousness is seen in the affection displayed for one's wife and offspring. And yet, one who leaves the association of his wife because of being thoroughly distressed in mind and continues continues to seek happiness for his own mind and body is not a real renunciate. The distinctive feature of the renunciation of the devotee of Krishna is its not being diverted from him in any way. A real renunciate accepts whatever is favorable for the Lord's satisfaction and rejects whatever is unfavorable. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu described the alternative to monkey-like renunciation to Raghunath Das Goswami as follows. Makara Vairagya na Karaloka Dekhana Yatha Yogya Vishaya Bhunja Anasakta Hana. You should not make yourself a show bottle devotee and become a false renunciate. Makara Vairagi. For the time being, enjoy the material world in a befitting way and do not become attached to it. Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela 16.238. In his commentary on the above verse, Śrīla Prabhupada states, the word Makaravairagya indicating false renunciation is very important in this verse. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, in commenting on this word, points out that monkeys make an external show of renunciation by not accepting clothing and by living naked in the forest. In this way, they consider themselves renunciates, but actually they are very busy enjoying sense gratification with dozens of female monkeys. Such renunciation is called Makara Vairagya, the renunciation of a monkey. One cannot be really renounced until one actually becomes disgusted with material activity and sees it as a stumbling block to spiritual advancement. Renunciation should not be falgu, temporary, but should exist throughout one's life. Temporary renunciation or monkey renunciation is like the renunciation one feels at a cremation ground. When a man takes a dead body to the crematorium, he sometimes thinks, this is the final end of the body. Why am I working so hard day and night? Such sentiments naturally arise in the mind of any man who goes to a crematorial ghata. However, as soon as he returns from the cremation grounds, he again engages in material activities for sense enjoyment. This is called Samasana Vairagya or Markata Vairagya to indicate so called The word Makara Vairagya is used by Srila Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to indicate so-called Vaishnavas who dress themselves in loin cloths trying to imitate Srila Rupa Goswami. Such people carry a bead bag and chant Hare Krishna, but at heart they are always thinking about getting women and money. Unknown to others, these Makara Vairagis maintain women but externally present themselves as renunciates. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very much opposed to these Makara Vairagis or pseudo Vaishnavas.
That is the highest happiness. Someone once observed a follower of Srila Gaura Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj begging alms at noon in the hot summer sun during the month of Chaitra, April to May. Approaching Babaji Maharaj, he asked him, "Why is your servant begging in the hot sun? Everyone begs in the morning, and they then return to their residences." Srila Babaji Maharaj told him, "Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has instructed his followers. तुम्हारे सेवाय दुखा होया जातो सही तो परमा सुख सेवा सुख दुख परम संपदा नशय avidya dukha. Troubles encountered in your service shall be the cause of great happiness, for in your devotional service joy and sorrow are equally great riches. Both destroy the misery of ignorance. Sharanagati 8.4. Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj has given this instruction to those who, desiring real benefit, always take shelter of the Supreme Master Sri Krishna and the devotees of the Lord. One must tolerate the distress that assails one as one practices devotional service in this unhappy world. In this way, the dualistic sufferings which appear in the form of happiness and distress will diminish. As long as one renders service unto the Lord in order to achieve a comfortable material situation, he cannot become free from the bondage of ignorance.
Once during the rainy season, Srila Babaji Maharaj left his kutira and dwelt under the porch of Dharmashala in Navadip. Rice prasada was kept there for him on a hanging rope shelf. A poisonous snake slithered down the wall with the help of the rope shelf, took note of the aroma of the prasada and started to move away. Seeing the snake, an old woman came running crying, "A snake is about to bite you." Srila Babaji Maharaj, who was blind, beat the ground with his hand and then asked, "Where is the snake? Where is the snake?" In the meantime, the serpent disappeared. The old woman exclaimed, "Oh Babaji Maharaj, have you gone mad? The snake could have bitten you. He just disappeared by your right side. Have you extended your right hand a fraction more to the side, you would have been bitten for sure. We cannot allow you to stay here." Hearing this, Babaji Maharaj told her, "Mother, you have inconvenienced yourself by standing here for so long. You must be tired. Please don't stand here any longer." The woman replied with determination, "I shall not leave this place until you go into a room." Babaji Maharaj replied, "I am going to accept prasada now. First, I will take prasad and then I will go into my room." The old woman continued to admonish him, saying that the prasada may have been touched by the lip of the snake. You cannot accept it. Because if it is poisonous, you will die. I will bring fresh prasad for you. Srila Babaji Maharaj then firmly stated, "I only accept prasada that has been offered to the deity or which I have obtained through begging and not otherwise. I do not take food offered by the materialistic people." Turning to one of the Babaji Maharaj attendants, the old woman asked, "Will you please arrange for the more rice for Babaji Maharaj?" Srila Babaji Maharaj then spoke more firmly, saying, "My dear mother, if you do not leave this place, I shall not listen to anything else you have to say." Feeling rejected, the woman left. After some time, the Babaji Maharaj asked the attendant if she had gone. Being answered in the affirmative, he remarked, "Did you see that how Maya is acting? How under the pretension of sympathy she tried to gain control? How she tries to gradually enter into various deceptive ways? Maya takes on various forms. She knows many tricks to cause the living entity to give up the worship of the Lord. Under the different pretension, she tried to make me enter my room, not accept the prasada and so forth. She never let the living entity serve the Supreme Lord." Then the Paramhamsa began to loudly sing the following song by the Srila Narottam Das Thakura. "गौर पाहु ना भजिये गोयनु प्रेम रत्न धन हेलय हरैनु अधने यतना करी धन त्यागिनु अपन्न कर्म दोषे अपनी दुबिनु सत्संग छाडी कैनु अशते विलास ते कराने लागिलो ये कर्म बंध फांस विषया विषया विषम विष सतत खैनु गौर कीर्तन रसे मागन न हैनु केनो वा अचय प्राण की सुख पाय नरोत्तम दास केनो ना गेलो मरिया. Not having worshipped the lotus feet of Gauranga, I have met only the Rion. I have lost the jewel of the love of Godhead due to my own negligence. I have only given attention to that which is not real well and abandoned that which has actually value. I have sunken within the material world by the reaction of my own karma. Having left real association, I am performing materialist activity. I have thus become conditioned by the grasp of my past karma. I have tasted the poison of material sense gratification over and over again. For this reason, I have not become absorbed in the nectar of the congregational chanting of Lord Hari. Why do I remain alive? What is my happiness? What has a Narottam Das given up his life? The Paramahamsa Babaji considered that the snake and the argumentative old woman were the agent of the illusory potency, come to test his determination to serve the Lord according to his strict standard. Of course, such a Vaishnava as Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj was never subjected to material tendencies of any sort. It was out of humility that he thought himself liable to be seduced by Maya. If a devotee such as he thought thus, how much should we, who simply aspire for spiritual advancement, not knowing when we shall achieve our goal? Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji and the Super Soul. One night at about 10 o'clock, Srila Babaji Maharaj suddenly awoke crying, Did you see that? Did you see that? The lecturer has gone to district of Pavana, and at night he had illicit sex with a widow there. Shame, shame. These evildoers by their vile activities have scandalized the name of religion. Srila Babaji Maharaj uttered this statement as though he were directly witnessing everything. He continued saying, Mahaprabhu has let me know the truth about this so-called scholar who travels from place to place, advertising himself as very learned. The name of giving Srimad Bhagavatam class, he collects money to support himself. The common people do not know his real nature. He always keep a widow with him. When anyone asks him about her, he passes her off as his wife. Whatever money he earns, he spends to purchase expensive items for her. Is there anyone who is more of an offender and hypocrite than this person? The opulence of omniscience was bestowed upon the Paramahamsa for the purpose of unmasking rascals and hypocrites. Such an incident evidenced the fact that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was directing Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj to expose the various form of deception and hypocrisy that exist in the name of spiritual life. We are fortunate that he acted thus, for if he had not identified the cheater around him, his own character might not have shown forth as resplendently as it did.
General instructions. Once, Srila Gaurakishore Das Babaji wrapped his body and feet with a cloth. Sitting covered like this, he said, Many persons, after being informed by others that I am a Vaishnava, come here to collect the dust from my feet. I tell them, I am not a Vaishnava. If you go where there are Vaishnavas with their feet pretentiously decorated and extended to be touched, then you can get unlimited dust. At this time, a person named Bhattacharya came from Vrindavana with his female companion to see Srila Babaji Maharaj. Approaching him, he said, You are my spiritual master, please be merciful to me. Babaji Maharaj replied saying, I have nothing. I have no rasagullas, sandesh, luchi, puris, money, sweet rice or sweet words. How can I bless you? Those spiritual masters who can feed their disciples with many sweets are praised as the most advanced. Nowadays, such a person is qualified to become a spiritual master. Presently, the learned section defines the word anukula, favorable, as receiving wealth, a beautiful wife, or sweet words. Bhattacharya then remarked, We have many misconceptions. Whatever you instruct, that we will do. Srila Gaurakishore Das Babaji Maharaj then instructed him, I can see what is most favorable for you. You should eat rice that has been soaked in water and sit on a grass seat. You should eat food that not even a dog would accept. You should wear clothes that even a thief would not steal. You must remain in the association of devotees and always chant the holy name of the Lord. By imitating the activities of one who is very renounced, one resembles a monkey. Monkeys sit in one place and remain quiet, but when they get the opportunity, they steal something. As long as one acts like a monkey, then his devotional service will never become fixed. Babaji Maharaj thus instructed Bhattacharya with respect to his actual position and responded to his insincere plea for instruction by giving him orders that a monkey-like renunciate could never follow. The humorous description of so-called spiritual masters given by Babaji Maharaj aptly describes a category of guru that people keep as a pet for fulfilling their material desires. Though speaking for Bhattacharya's benefit, it is clear that the man was not sincere enough to actually hear the instructive words of a bona fide guru. Ashtakaliya Leela. A so-called Goswami approached Srila Babaji Maharaj to learn the intimate pastimes of the Lord called Ashtakaliya Leela, pastimes pertaining to 8 times of the day. The first time he came, Srila Babaji Maharaj told him, "Just now I don't have any leisure time. When I find the opportunity, I will explain it to you." As many times as the so-called Goswami came, he received the same answer. Finally, the Goswami became disappointed and stopped coming. Sometime later, the Paramahamsa remarked, "A person who becomes distressed at the loss of a useless coin cannot possibly learn the most intimate pastimes of the Lord. Just by reading a book about the Ashtakaliya Leela, real understanding will not develop. One may theoretically understand it, but where will a spiritual body for assisting the Lord in such pastimes come from? The attempt to reveal the Lord's pastimes in ordinary literature has created havoc. When such things are written in ordinary books, such literature simply adds to a rubbish pile which is already heaped high. Everyone is building a high wooden platform, 2 stories high. Then, after climbing to the top of the platform, they simply pass stood. So many people come to see me, but none of them are genuine. Before they can understand Ashtakaliya Leela, they will have to give up bad association and continuously chant the holy name in the association of devotees. If they attempt to whimsically perform solitary worship, they will be snared by the illusory energy. The name, form, quality, and pastimes of the Lord are manifested within the association of the devotees. Wretched persons who do not have full faith in the chanting of the holy name are creating an auspicious situation for themselves, or creating an inauspicious situation for themselves by separately attempting to understand such things. Their attempt to worship the Lord is undertaken without proper intelligence. Babaji Maharaj hereby declares that such esoteric subjects, Ashtakaliya Leela, Siddha Deha, spiritual body, etc., are not appropriate subjects for discussion with neophyte devotees. Those who have at least attained to the platform of Asakti Bhakti, where genuine attachment to Sri Krishna arises, may indeed release and discuss these topics, having achieved a standard of realization which make such discussions relevant. But those of lesser attainments are expected to restrain themselves to the reverential glorification of the Lord in the association of devotees. By dint of that process, the spiritual body, Siddha Deha, the Lord's pastimes, form, etc., are all revealed at the appropriate time.
An unusual bhajan kutir. On another occasion, Srila Babaji Maharaj remarked, "It is not possible to properly worship the Supreme Lord in an outhouse." Having made this remark, he saw that the people in his vicinity could not grasp his meaning, and so he explained, "A house where persons always indulge in eating and sensual pleasures is not a place for sadhus. Such places may appear to be ashramas or temples, but they are the abodes of lust. Sensual life may be permissible for the demigods, but not for devotees of the Lord. Materialistic persons who live in this way imagine they are residing in heaven, but they actually live in a deep pool of excrement in the form of sense and objects of the material world. However, when those who seriously worship the Supreme Lord take full shelter of Him, wherever they reside becomes non-different to Sri Radha Kunda, the supremely holy pond of Sri Radha. A few days after these remarks were made, the proprietor of a Navadvip Dharmashala named Mr. Girish, accompanied by his wife, came to see Babaji Maharaj. The proprietor's wife very humbly requested Babaji Maharaj to allow them to build a bhajan kutir, a small cottage for worship for him. They remarked that during the rainy and cold seasons, he was undergoing extreme hardship in that said cottage where he was then residing. Hearing this, Babaji Maharaj replied, "No, I am not experiencing even the slightest hardship. But there is one thing which causes me difficulty. If you will agree to help me, then I will tell you what it is." The couple expressed their eagerness, and so he continued, many people come to me with selfish motives. They do not desire their real welfare, and they simply create a disturbance to my bhajan. If you can give me your latrine, it will serve as a favorable place for my chanting the holy name of the Lord. There I shall be able to worship the holy name without disturbance. People will have to go there, hate to go there. If you cannot do this, then do not disturb me and make me waste this human form of life. On hearing this, Mr. Giri's wife exclaimed, Oh, most revered Babaji, we are prepared to obey your command. But if we let a saint live in our privy, it will be a great sin for me, sin for us. Babaji Maharaj replied, I am not a saint. Those who are pujaris where the temple deities were worshipped, or others who keep matted hair and wear tree bark are saints. I am unable to worship the Lord in a proper way. So a privy is the right place for me. If you can oblige me in this way, then say so. Then say so. Otherwise, I shall not listen to you any longer. Having no other alternative, Girish and his wife agreed to the proposal and said, even if you do not utilize the room adjoining the privy, then there will be two chambers there for those who serve you. Girish had the exterior of the privy renovated by the masons and the interior thoroughly cleansed. Otherwise, the inner structure was left unchanged for fear that the Babaji would be displeased. Srila Gaura Babaji Maharaj stayed in the public latrine of a dharmasala to teach people in general that attachment to material affairs under the pretense of devotion is more false-smelling than excreta. Unlawful imitation and wickedness. There was no space in the latrine to accommodate more than one person. Babaji Maharaj used to bolt the door from the inside and chant the holy name of the Lord. Adjoining the privy was a dilapidated chamber. A man named Madhu moved into that room, had the roof repaired with tin and began to chant in imitation of Babaji Maharaj. One day, Babaji Maharaj called out to him, saying, What are you doing and what are you contemplating in that room with the door closed? What are you thinking about your secluded state? He who does not chant the holy name of Lord Hari in the association of devotees free from offense is not in position to see anything but the four walls of a room. Are you seeing the surroundings? Are you thinking about the desirable woman, fame, or material gain? If you remain in that room, then different kinds of rubbish thoughts will assail you. Srila Gaura Kišora, although physically blind, then demonstrated his capacity of seeing by disclosing Madhu's hypocrisy. He informed the hypocrite that he was cognizant of all his secret acts, how he had stolen the money and food which was left for Babaji Maharaj by others, and how he had gone to various places in Navadvip to indulge in illicit intercourse with women. Eventually, this imitator became the victim of a serious disease. He became so ill that after a few days, his friends had to come and carry him away to his house. It has thus been demonstrated how, as a result of offenses committed by the imitation of a Mahabhagavat, one eventually falls down. He taught how worldly people, under the pretense of religious activities, experience only the seeming pleasure of sense gratification, which is compared to the living in stool. Srila Babaji Maharaj displayed these pastimes with a view to instructing his followers. Desire for scholarship. A brahmachari named Aitra Punya approached Srila Gaura Das Babaji and requested him to allow him to perform bhajana in his association. Srila Babaji Maharaj advised him, you should desist from committing offenses at the lotus feet of a Vaishnavas and engage yourself in chanting the holy name in the association of your devotees. The brahmachari heard this instruction but has disinclined to follow it. Without informing Babaji Maharaj, he went to Radhadesh and introduced himself there as a disciple of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur and begged money, saying that it was for getting instruction in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Upon returning, he began to study grammar with a learned scholar. He thought that if he could become literate, then he would be respected. He considered that because Srila Babaji Maharaj was illiterate, he could not be very advanced. One day he visited Babaji Maharaj and was told he was studying grammar in order to get women and material position. Hearing this, Ayatra replied that he had no such evil desires, but he simply wanted to learn grammar so that he could understand the Srimad Bhagavatam. Srila Babaji Maharaj attempted to help him again and told him, you have been to West Bengal and saw how reciters of the Puranas make their living by reciting the Bhagavatam. Therefore, you have become greedy and want to fill your begging bowls. If you desire your actual welfare, give up your offensive greed and engage yourself sincerely in worshipping the Lord. The foolish brahmachari once again ignored the good advice of Babaji Maharaj. On yet another occasion, the brahmachari came to Babaji Maharaj and prayed, please be merciful to me. Srila Babaji Maharaj was silent for some time, and then he said, you are thinking of earning your livelihood. Do not try to fulfill your desires in that way. No one present at the time could understand to what Babaji Maharaj referred. When he would be reciter left, Babaji Maharaj told those present he is having illicit intercourse with a widow. He then instructed everyone there for their benefit, saying, do not pursue others to commit sinful activities. And if desires other than devotion service arise in your minds, please come to me before acting and allow your minds to be changed. By this instruction, Srila Babaji Maharaj indicated that illicit sex is the most abominable and forbidden act. He who externally behaves like a sadhu but secretly has illicit intercourse commits an even more heinous sin.
Devotion and hypocrisy. A certain Damodara Dāsa came to live with Babaji Maharaj for some time. For this, he gained some respect from the local people. He had originally come from Orissa, where he had formerly been married. Once his former father-in-law came to visit him. The father-in-law was accustomed to go from place to place with a manuscript of Srimad Bhagavatam in his hand, reciting it as a means of earning his livelihood. Bābājī Mahāraja had permitted Damodara Dāsa to collect substantial donations from the pilgrims who visited him. Without informing Bābājī Mahāraja, Damodara Dāsa gave a certain portion of the collection to his father-in-law. The omniscient Bābājī came to know of it, and he stopped talking to Damodara Dāsa. Prior to this incident, Damodara Dāsa had occasionally been allowed to boil rice for Mahāraja. But after the theft, Bābājī Mahāraja stopped eating anything touched by him. He reverted to his practice of eating rice soaked in water. Realizing he had been discovered, the Orissan became terrified, and other associates of Bābājī Mahāraja became disturbed. The Orissan began to fast from all food and water. When Śrīla Gaura Kiśora Dāsa Bābājī was informed of this, he said, if this worldly person does not leave me immediately, then I will give up my life by drowning in the river Ganges. Shortly thereafter, Bābājī Mahāraja plunged into the water of the holy river. Saying this, the people who were on the scene immediately went to his rescue. He shouted at them, leave me alone, don't touch me. If I cannot perform Hari Bhajana, then I will not bear this body anymore. The people insisted on rescuing him. However, when he was revived and made comfortable, he asked the people, why did you take me from the Ganges? The Orissan has given away all that I have to his father. Hearing this, the people told him they would replace whatever he had lost. They would give him 4 times what the Orissan had given his father, and were prepared to bring the money immediately. Srila Bābājī Mahāraja told them, I don't need the money, but I refuse to keep this Orissan in my association. If I live with a hypocrite, then my bhajana will be hindered. Many of the people had thought that the Bābājī had wanted to drown himself due to his attachment to money. Now, however, they could understand the truth. He was not attached to money, but he could not tolerate hypocrisy in the name of service. Hypocrisy or deceit in the sole province of Krishna, only he can exhibit it without sinful reaction. When an ordinary person practices deceit, it is an unlawful imitation of the Lord. The enjoying spirit of the materialist. Once Śrīla Gaura Kiśora Prabhu gave 100 rupees to Śrīla Saraswati Thakura for safekeeping. In order to keep it secure, Śrīla Prabhupada deposited the money in a bank. One day, in his absence, Śrīla Bābājī Mahāraja suddenly came to Śrīla Bhakti Vinoda Thakura and requested him for the money. The Thakura informed the Bābājī that Saraswati Thakura has deposited the money in the bank, and in his absence, it could not be withdrawn. Bābājī Mahāraja declared that he needed the money urgently and insisted on having it at once. Seeing no other alternative, the Thakura took the money from his own pocket and paid him. The Bābājī sent that money to a well-known person in Vrindavana, and having sent it, he remarked, considering me a Vaishnava, people have given me money for my enjoyment, but I am not a Vaishnava. There are Vaishnavas at Vraja. have sent the money for their service. Whatever the people had given him in the consideration that he was a great Vaishnava, the Babaji had kept, but not for his personal enjoyment. He always utilized any funds he collected in the service of other Vaishnavas. The Babaji said things which are obtained by Madhukari, begging, that is, going from place to place for sustenance like a bee, are transcendental. One should eat what is necessary for sustaining his worship of Hari. If one accepts more than he needs, his heart will become contaminated, and an obstruction will arise in his worship of Lord Hari, in hope of acquiring wealth. One day, Govinda Goswami of Kuliya, Navadvipa, accompanied by a person in the garb of a Vaishnava ascetic, came to Bābājī Mahārāja and said, Babaji, I have been abroad and have thus not been able to have your darshana for a long time. Śrīla Bābājī Maharaj said, for your bhajana at Navadvipa, you have been provided with a large house there, as well as a well-constructed latrine. Why have you gone to the trouble of leaving the country? Why have you gone to these other places? At this, the man's friend said, he goes to other places for the deliverance of the people there. If our Prabhu did not go to other lands, what will happen to those people? Hearing this, Bābājī Mahārāja felt extremely disgusted and remarked, if it is your real object to elevate people of other lands, why do you desire the wealth of a king? I have studied your mentality. You are planning to construct a brick house. If you will only sincerely engage in Hari Bhajana and not consider yourself a Prabhu, I will inform Lord Nityananda and you will have 50 brick houses. But you desire accommodations for the material enjoyment of your sons and daughters, and thus Nitai will provide you with material paraphernalia and deprive you of love of Krishna. If in the name of liberating humanity you seek material profit, adoration and acclaim, you will become fallen. What to speak of being liberated, the people will simply be cheated. Having thus spoken, Śrīla Bābājī Mahārāja started chanting loudly and refused to stop until that evening. He cautioned those listening that as a result of an offense to the holy name, or an offense in worshipping the deity, one will achieve three results: dharma, artha, kama. These are actually misfortunes for the living entity. Our Guru Nityananda cheats pseudo devotees by supplying their material wants by depriving them of love of God.
Gaura, Gaura, not rupee, rupee. Once, some people came to Bābājī Maharaj and praised the son of a certain caste, Goswami, for his skill in explaining the Srimad Bhagavatam. The boy also chanted Gaura, Gaura and expressed a variety of emotional feelings. In this way, he made many disciples. In reply, Bābājī Maharaj told the people, this so-called Goswami cannot explain the Goswami's literature. He explains sense gratificatory Shastra. He does not chant Gaura Gaura. He shouts rupees, rupees, my rupees. As long as he maintains this mentality, there is no question of his performing Hari Bhajana. By reason of this materialistic activity, the Vaishnava Dharma remains concealed. It affords no benefit to the world. On the contrary, it creates a disturbance. One suffers the consequences of his own deeds. A certain young man came to Bābājī Maharaj and expressed a desire to learn how to worship the Lord. Hearing this, Bābājī Maharaj said, if you can leave aside the association of pseudo Vaishnavas and Avaishnavas and can stay with us always, then you will be able to learn how to chant the name of Lord Hari. We maintain ourselves by living on remnants of the foodstuffs eaten by the inhabitants of the Dhama. We use the rejected earthen pots of the residents of the Dhama, and we collect and wear the discarded cloth used to cover corpses. If you associate with other so-called Vaishnavas or those practicing worldly religion, they will consider you untouchable and reject you, or you will commit the offense of touching them. Hearing this, the young man said, yes, whatever you say, that I shall do. After a while, however, being charmed by the melodious voice of a bhajana performer named Rama Dāsa, who dwelt close by. He joined him in Kirtana without Babaji Maharaj's knowledge. The young man also ate so-called prasada with and accepted the gift of a pair of karatalas from him. One evening shortly thereafter, he chanted within the hearing of Babaji Maharaj, playing his new kartalas. A few days later, after taking his morning bath in the Ganges, the young man began loudly reciting Vaishnava Vandana within the hearing of Babaji Maharaj. When the young man went to collect alms, Babaji Maharaj called an attendant and said, "He is secretly coming and going to the house of Rama Dāsa, and whatever devotion he is gathering there, he is trying to spread here. In fact, instead of devotion for Lord Hari, he is amassing sinful reactions." Hearing this, someone said to Babaji Maharaj, "Who has informed you of all these things?" Babaji Maharaj replied, "By hearing his chanting and his manner of reading the Vaishnava Vandana, I have been able to analyze him. He will not be permitted to stay here anymore. If a man once takes the bad association of counterfeit Vaishnavas or non Vaishnavas, he will never follow any beneficial instruction. He will only learn hypocrisy." After this incident, the young man, without informing Babaji Maharaj, suddenly left for Puri. Sorrowfully, Babaji Maharaj said, "That boy has been misguided. He was tempted by unsanctified food and other things. I was not able to protect him. The Jiva is independent and reaps the results of his own deeds. Inspired by Krishna, he came to me, but he is secretly associated with others and has invited great danger. Now he will garb himself as a Vaishnava ascetic. In this way, the ill intentioned persons of this world assist ordinary people in assuming the garb of devotees and thus them and turn them into fools. Hypocrites who receive obeisances from others and are greedy for good food assume the guise of Vaishnavas. Their pretentious chanting of the Lord's name is nothing but the noise made by frogs. The more they croak, the sooner they will be swallowed by the snake of material enjoyment. About a month later, the young man returned to Navadvipa. He had assumed the dress of a religious mendicant. Accompanied by the Mahanta, head priest of a nearby ashrama, he came to see Babaji Maharaj. After offering obeisances, the Mahanta said, "Your disciple has returned from Puri. He has become an advanced Vaishnava and thinks himself fortunate. He has served Haridasa Thakur and is performing bhajana on the platform of spontaneous devotion." At this, Babaji Maharaj said, "I cannot determine what sort of disciple of mine he is. In this world, I do not see anyone as a disciple. I have not been able to become a disciple. Therefore, how can I be expected to be the spiritual master of others? If one artificially assumes the garb of a Vaishnava, what sort of Vaishnava will he be? The noise created by frog like hypocrites is neither Harinama nor Hari Bhajana. The show of spontaneous devotion of such frog like people is for achieving the happiness of sense pleasure, but they cannot enjoy that happiness for long. The blank snake of material enjoyment will swallow them. It is not so easy to serve Haridasa Thakur. Why are you spoiling your life in the dress of a Mahanta? Why don't you leave all this aside and chant the holy name with purity?" To this stern query, the Mahanta replied, "I have no material motive in taking up this position. It is only for the welfare of the Bhajana Ashrama and for service to the Vaishnavas. This area was overgrown and I have cut down the tangle of vegetation and tidied the area." Hearing this, Babaji Maharaj was extremely mortified. and he refused to talk to the Mahanta. When the Mahanta left, Babaji Maharaj told those nearby, "This atheistic person has informed me that he has cut the wish fulfilling trees and creepers of Navadvipa. Alas, alas, just see, just see. It grieves us to cut even a solitary dry tree of Navadvipa. These trees and plants are our eternal friends. They assist Lord Gaura in his eternal pastimes. These cruel persons never achieve the qualification to perform devotional service to Lord Hari by making an outward show of being a Vaishnava. They bring misfortune to themselves and to others as well. The atonement for adultery. A few days after this incident, a person called Himavan came to see Srila Gaura Mahārāja Dāsa Bābājī and begged him to allow him to stay in one of the Dharmashala rooms. The proprietors of the Dharmashala kept all the rooms on the northern side under the control of Srila Bābājī Mahārāja. Himavan was permitted to stay in one of these rooms. Srila Bābājī Maharaj told him within the hearing of others, "He who wants to perform Haribhajana will not associate with worldly people. Those who secretly contemplate accepting such bad association while making a show of good association, or who associate with religious hypocrites, develop sinful tendencies. I have seen many thousands of people ruining themselves by taking recourse to hypocrisy, tolerating many troubles patiently. If one constantly hears and chants in the association of Vaishnavas, he can maintain his worship of the holy name. Even after being so instructed, Himavan under a used a secretly converse with hypocritical religionists. Babaji Maharaj, upon considering this, became extremely angry, and shortly thereafter Himavan became seriously ill. Seeing his suffering, the supremely merciful Babaji Maharaj asked one of his attendants to serve him. After a few days, it was observed that a young woman came and began tending to Himavan. The omniscient Babaji Maharaj came to know of this and asked his servant, "Who is serving Himavan?" The servant replied, "I am serving Himavan. No one else is doing so." Babaji Maharaj demanded in a deep, thundering voice, "Is anyone else coming to him?" At this, the frightened servant admitted, "Yes, a woman comes to him." When Babaji Maharaj received this confirmation, he instructed the servant, "As that woman is coming to serve him, you should not go to him any longer." Babaji Maharaj called for Himavan and informed him, "If you want to stay here, you will have to pay me 15 rupees. If you cannot afford to pay 15 rupees, then you should go somewhere else, because if you happen to die, the money will be required to meet the expenses of your cremation." After this, Babaji Maharaj said quietly to himself, "If I do not let this man stay here, the woman will inevitably take him to her house. This is her desire, and she will then be able to nurse him at her ease." After suffering for a long time, Human was cured of the disease, and he then left for Vrindavana. Srila Babaji Maharaj ignored him and offered no resistance to his going. Having journeyed to Vrindavana, Himavan stayed with Damodara Dasa of Kusuma Sarovar. This Damodara Dasa was well known to Babaji Maharaj. After circumambulating the 12 forests of Vrindavana, Himavan went to Damodara Dasa one day and said, "In the garb of a Vaishnava, I have committed adultery. Please tell me how I can save myself." Damodara Dasa said, "You must give up your life. Apart from this, there is no atonement. This is what has been prescribed by Mahaprabhu." Himavan had a few grams of opium brought from Govardhana and took it. After ingesting the opium, he perspired profusely and trembling, came to Damodara Dasa and informed him that he had taken opium with a view to giving up his life. After taking repeated doses, he lost his life. Simultaneously, Damodara Dasa was also attacked by a deadly disease. At that time, a certain Goswami was in Vrindavana. He arranged for Damodara's treatment and helped to save him. As soon as Damodara recovered, he returned to Navadvipa and came to see Śrīla Bābājī Maharaj. Seeing him, Bābājī Maharaj warned him, "You stay somewhere else. If you stay here with me, you will lose your life because you are two dacoits nearby. One is Narendra and the other is Larai. Professing to be my servants, they have made propaganda with my neighbors that they are staying with me. Where they stay at night, I do not know. Once, in the dead of night, I called for them to bring me a glass of water. I shouted for a long time, but there was no response from them. The following morning, when I mentioned this to them, they said, "We didn't hear a thing." Thereafter, being ignored by Bābājī Maharaj, Damodara Dasa took shelter in the house of a certain young woman. Hearing about his activities from others, Bābājī Maharaj became furious and said, "Don't speak about any of this in my presence." Another hypocrite in the dress of a Vaishnava had also lived at Kusuma Sarovar with Damodara Dasa. He was similarly rejected by Bābājī Maharaj. A story was related that during the night several dacoits took out his eyes and cut his body to pieces. People said that the duplicitous fellow had stolen goods with him which he had kept well hidden. He was cruelly murdered by the dacoits on that account. These incidents vividly illustrate the danger of posing as a Vaishnava but secretly associating with the materialists and committing sinful activity. The young man who went to Vrindavana associated with sinful persons and fell down with a young woman was unjustly advised by the hypocrite Damodara Dasa to commit suicide. Damodara Dasa suggested an atonement which he himself could never have performed, and for an evil act he later indulged in himself. Although suicide is sometimes prescribed as the atonement for such misbehavior on the part of a sannyasi and was approved of by Mahaprabhu in the case of Junior Haridasa, taking recourse to the constant chanting of the holy name is generally considered sufficient atonement, provided the malefactor is prepared to give up his evil ways. At any rate, it can be easily concluded from these incidents that sinful activities conducted by someone dressed as a liberated Vaishnava have particularly grave consequences. Of course, it should not be imagined that it is hypocritical not to indulge in the sinful things one may desire in one's impure heart. If one feels unable to decry that evil with which he is yet afflicted, then he should keep silent but steadfastly refuse to succumb to it. One derives no benefit from the association of Bhagavatas if he does not heed their advice and associates instead with the hypocritical religionists. No good will be availed to one who is insincere in his assumption of the dress of a Vaishnava and his renunciation of the world. On the contrary, such insincerity is productive of great misfortune. Those who were hypocritical in their dealings with Śrīla Gaura Prabhu were ruined as a result of their committing the offense of deliberately maintaining material attachment while chanting the holy name.
Srila Gaur Kishora Prabhu and Maharaja Mandira Chandra. Knowing that Babaji Maharaj was a superlative Vaishnava and the spiritual master of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, the famous Zamindar of Kashim Bajar, Sri Mandira Chandra Nandi, invited Srila Gaur Kishore Prabhu to a Vaishnava conference, which was to be held at his palace. Moved by the invitation of the Vaishnava and with a heavy heart, Srila Babaji Maharaj responded, "If you want my association, you will have to leave your property in the hands of your officials and come and reside here. You must dwell on the bank of the Ganges River at Navadvip in a thatched hut with me. You won't have to think of procuring food. I shall personally feed you by begging alms. Thus, I shall be obliged to come to your chanting compound by your daily invitation. But if I presently accept your invitation and leave the transcendental Gaura Dhama and go to stay at your royal palace, then in no time I shall consider myself your competitor. As a result of this, I shall attempt to acquire land and property. This will create a great obstacle to my Krishna bhajana and the desire to worship the objects of the senses will arise in my heart. In the course of time, I shall become envious of a Vaishnava king. Naturally, if I want to maintain everlasting love and friendship with you, and as my Vaishnava friend, you sincerely wish to show kindness to me, then it will be our bounden duty to stay at this transcendental place of Vishvambaras, maintain our lives by the activities of Madhukari, and always remain busy in worshipping Lord Hari." Another account of this incident and Babaji Maharaj's response to the king's entreaty is as follows. The Maharaja of Kashim Bajar, the late Manindra Chandra Nandi Bahadura, tried with great effort to take Srila Babaji Maharaj to the Kashim Bajar palace. But his desire was not successful. But the Maharaja's men went to Babaji Maharaj and said that by the order of the Maharaja, he would take Maharaj with great care by the palanquin to Krishnanagar and from there by first class train to Kasim Bazar. Srila Babaji Maharaj replied, "If I go to the Maharaja's palace, I may become greedy for wealth, and due to that, there would be a possibility of strained relationship with the Maharaj. Let him give over all his worldly possessions to his relatives and officers and come to me. I shall have a boat cover like mine made and give it to him for a dwelling place. And together we shall blissfully perform Hari Bhajana." The means the Maharaja's men left. Babaji Maharaj was, of course, perfectly realized and aloof from all material temptation. Yet he graciously warned the non-liberated devotee by this humble example of the danger of accepting materialistic association or excessively opulent material facilities. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu voiced similar warnings in his dealings with Maharaja Prataparudra. Initially, he would have nothing to do with the king. He would not even meet him, saying that it was improper for a sannyasi to meet the materialistic person, despite his knowing the monarch to be an elevated devotee. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's adherents exerted themselves to arrange meetings on the king's behalf. But Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would not agree. Eventually, the king came to him, stripped of his royal attire and dressed as a mendicant, and reciting verses from the Srimad Bhagavatam, and thereby received the mercy of Mahaprabhu. Regarding associating with mundane people, Srila Prabhupada comments in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Chapter 13, verse 187. Although outwardly the king was a mundane man interested in money and women, internally he was purified by devotional activities. He showed this by engaging as a street sweeper to please Lord Jagannatha. A person may appear to be a pounds and shillings man interested in money and women, but if he is actually very meek and humble and surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is not mundane. Such a judgment can be made only by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his very confidential devotees. As a general people, however, no devotee should intimately mix with mundane people interested in money and women.
There was a certain Pandit Bābājī of Kuja who wore only a loincloth as a dress. This Pandit Bābājī was a much respected person whose secret immortality wounded the feelings of Sri Gaura Prabhu. As a result of this, Bābājī Maharaj left aside his loincloth and outer garments. One day and dressed himself in a fine dhoti and chadar, outer having attired himself in the manner of a dapper materialist, he went to see Sri Bhaktivinoda Thakur at Swananda Sukta Kunja. The Thakur, beholding him in this unexpected dress, asked him why he was so attired. Babaji Maharaj replied, "We have adopted the dress of Sri Chaitanya, but privately we don't hesitate to commit adultery. Hence, it is better for us to dress like the husband of a prostitute than to assume the guise of Sri Chaitanya and commit adultery secretly. In this way, we will at least be free from hypocrisy." Another version of this incident is found in Prabhupada Sri Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur. Seeing the wretched condition of this monkey like renunciate, Sid Babaji Maharaj arrived one day before Sri Bhaktivinoda Thakur at Sri Sukh Swananda Sukta Kunj, wearing a beautifully bordered dhoti and shawl. Seeing the crestful personless and in that dress, the Thakur became extremely amazed. Then Babaji Maharaj said, "It is 1,000 times better to put on a dress of a well-to-do gentleman than to wear a loincloth and secretly perform immoral behavior, not only in the countryside village, but even in Gaura as very famous holy places. What outrage, what mischiefs are being carried on by these monkeys? They forget गोरा रामी मुखे बोलिए नाही चले गुरार आजार गुरार पिचार लोले फले फले लोग देखान गोर भय तिलक मात्र धरी गो बने ते अत्याचार गोर धरे चोरी do not do if you just vibrate the sound. I am Goraz. With your mouth, if Goraz behavior and deliberations are accepted, then result will fructify. If you only wear tilak and worship God to show off to other people while secretly acting immorally, Gora detects your theft.
The result of offense committed to the Acharya. A certain Ayatra Punya lived at Mayapur for a few days, and then he departed. Shortly thereafter, he bought arms from Mayapur to Navadvip and went to take darshan of Bābājī Maharaj, who resided there at that time. Bābājī Maharaj inquired from him about Mayapur. In reply, Ayatra Punya remarked, "I will not go to Mayapur anymore, because that Saraswati and others are Vaikuntamen. They're interested in the Aishwarya mood. I prefer bhajana in the mood of Raja. I am not interested in their association." Hearing this, Bābājī Maharaj felt disgusted and said, "It is ridiculous for a sparrow to attempt to cross the ocean. If you are really serious about living in Raja, give up your criticism, be lowly and humble like the grass, and always chant the holy name of the Lord day and night." The first and foremost principle is that you should give up offensiveness at the feet of the Vaishnavas. Do you think that you will get information about Vaikuntha from hell? Saraswati Thakur is in Vaikuntha and he is in Vrindavana as well. You are presently in the lap of the witch of Maya. How will you know the Saraswati of Raja? At his rebuke, Ayatra Punya said, "I will live with you in Navadvip." Srila Bābājī Maharaj said, "You are not in a position to live at Navadvip. One who commits offenses at the lotus feet of Vaishnavas cannot live in Navadvipa. You are an offender at the feet of Transcendental Mayapur. You are sure to become degraded. I live at Mayapur and Navadvip as well. Those who detest living in Mayapur will never be able to live at Navadvip. Mayapur is the birthplace of the son of Sachi. It is a transcendental abode. You don't possess the eyes to see how Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Saraswati Prabhu have exemplified the performance of Hari Bhajana with pure ecstatic emotion. You are inimical to one Vaishnava and pray to another for mercy. Thereafter, it actually came to be as predicted by Bābājī Mahārāja, that the aforesaid man became atheistic and indulged in illicit intercourse with women. He was begging alms and purchasing expensive gifts for various women with whom he had illicit connection. Such is a result of committing offenses against great personalities. Sensuous people view the world with lust. The aforementioned Ayatra Punya went to Srila Bābājī Maharaj one day and criticized an intimate and elevated associate of Bābājī Maharaj's. He whom you consider a soul of great devotion and address as Prabhu is showing signs of attachment to the objects of the senses. There is every probability that he will become a horrid materialist. Hearing this, Srila Bābājī Maharaj became so grave and silent that those who were nearby were frightened by this mood and they requested Punya to leave the place immediately. Srila Bābājī Maharaj's attitude that day has been aptly expressed by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Vaishnava Charitra Sarvada Pavitra Ye Ninde Hisha Kori Bhaktivinoda Na Shambhashe Tare Take Shada Mauna Dhori. The actions and character of a Vaishnava are always pure. One who criticizes a Vaishnava commits violence. Bhaktivinoda does not speak to one who criticizes a Vaishnava and thus maintains his silence. When Punya departed, Bābājī Maharaj spoke in a trembling voice in his direction, saying, "This wretched fool has become lustful for material things. By assigning his own mischief to a Vaishnava, he indicates his own condition. A Vaishnava never becomes materially attached except to render service to Krishna. A person who has the least attachment to material objects can never develop love and devotion for Krishna. That one has the symptoms of natural love and devotion cannot be clearly understood without once exhibiting great attachment to the objects necessary for his service to Hari. He who is greatly devoted to Srimati Radharani and Sri Krishna shows a great natural attachment for objects favorable to their service. Such attachment is not for the purpose of their own enjoyment or for that of their family members. Seeing their attachment, which is greater than that of a materialist, to worldly objects necessary for serving Krishna, the so-called renunciates and the sensualists think that the affectionate devotee is materially attached. In fact, those who are without such sincere attachment, their show of devotion to Krishna is nothing but hypocrisy. He who privately speaks ill of a Vaishnava should be avoided. I shall not look upon the face of that wicked man again."
The attachment of a Mahabhagavata. A householder Vaishnava once presented a valuable shawl to Srila Gaura Kiśora. He accepted it, kept it with great care, and highly prized the present. On another occasion, a man from a Vaishnava family gave Bābājī Maharaj a few rupees. He accepted it, knotted it in the border of his outer garment, and kept it very carefully. He examined it with his hand repeatedly to see whether the money was safe. A wealthy, materialistic man from Calcutta noticed this and lost whatever little faith he had for Bābājī Maharaj. A few days later, Bābājī Maharaj gave away the shawl and the money to a Vaishnava. When the foolish materialistic met Śrīla Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati in Calcutta, he remarked, "I went to see Śrīla Bābājī Maharaj, but I saw that he very eagerly received a shawl and some money. He glorified the donors repeatedly. I am unable to discern what sort of sadhu he is." Hearing this foolishness from the wealthy, worldly man, Srila Saraswati Thakur sharply replied, "You have merely observed his superficial behavior. In reality, he has shown his attachment to the service of Krishna. The rest of us show our attachment to worldly pleasure. Those fools to whom wealth is dear think that Srila Bābājī Maharaj is also greedy for wealth. He has merely praised a person who favorably served a Vaishnava, and we flatter those who help us achieve our personal sense gratification. As lustful men see the world full of beautiful women, materialistic and falsely renounced devotees of Krishna look upon the activities of a Mahabhagavata which are pleasing to Krishna's senses as sense gratification. Unconditional shelter at the lotus feet of a bona fide spiritual master. Sincere devotional service to Krishna is far above worldly ethics and learning. Srila Gaura Kishora Prabhu and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur have shown this ideal by expressing it through the following pastime. Under the instruction of Thakur Bhakti Vinod, Srila Saraswati Thakur went to meet Srila Gaura Kishore Prabhu and prayed for Bhagavati Diksha. On the occasion of Saraswati Thakur's first attempt, Srila Babaji Maharaj told him, I shall ask Mahaprabhu about this, for without asking him, I am in no position to tell you anything. On the succeeding day, when Srila Saraswati Thakur approached him again, Babaji Maharaj said that he had forgotten to ask Mahaprabhu. Saraswati Thakur earnestly implored him, saying, If I do not get your mercy, I shall not maintain my life. On the third day, Saraswati Thakur presented himself before Srila Gaurakishore, who said, I inquired from Mahaprabhu, but he said, good behavior and scholarship are extremely insignificant in comparison to devotional service to the Supreme Lord. Hearing this, Srila Saraswati Thakur was rather hurt and said, Because you worship Krishna, the crushed jewel of hypocrites, are you thus not deceiving me? If I do not receive the mercy of your divine lotus feet, I shall give up my life. Goshti Purna favored Sri Ramanujacharya after his request for initiation was turned down 18 times. Certainly, I shall wait to be favored by you someday. This is my firm vow. Hearing this, Srila Bābājī Maharaj was extremely pleased and sprinkled him with the dust of his lotus feet. That same day, Srila Saraswati Thakur was initiated at Swananda Sukhadha Kunja by Srila Gaura Dāsa Bābājī Maharaj.
The pride of artificial renunciation. Gopal Das Babaji, who was proud of being the disciple of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, lived in Sridham Mayapur, the birthplace of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He began to artificially imitate the indifference to worldly affairs of Srila Gaura Das Babaji. He was always absorbed in chanting in the place where he stayed, a fruit orchard. In order to present himself as being wrapped in chanting, he ignored the cows who destroyed the fruits of the orchard. He maintained indifference to all disturbances and thus attempted to show that he was always absorbed in chanting and was disinterested in external affairs. One day he proudly informed Srila Saraswati Thakur that he was more apathetic to worldly affairs than Srila Gaura Prabhu. Hearing this and considering the man's welfare, Srila Saraswati Thakur rebuked him and then feelingly extolled the extraordinary character and indifference to worldly affairs of Babaji Maharaj. Gopal Das complained to Thakur Bhaktivinoda about this. The Thakur's rejoinder was, it will be to your advantage to hear Saraswati Prabhu's chastisement and advice. Even the old Muslim inhabitants of Mayapur would speak amongst themselves about the detachment of Srila Gaura Das Babaji and Gopal Das Babaji. The formers being natural, the latter artificial. One cannot become a renunciate or bhajananandi simply by mimicking the detachment of Mahabhagavata. A hypocrite's prayer for mercy. On another occasion, Ayatra Punya came to see Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur at Mayapur on the pretext of wanting to perform Hari Bhajan in his association. He used to also visit Babaji Maharaj, but the latter paid no real attention to him. Srila Saraswati Thakur was the favorite of Babaji Maharaj. So Ayatra Punya often requested Saraswati Thakur to speak a few words on his behalf so that he could obtain the mercy of Babaji Maharaj. Being entreated by Ayatra, Srila Saraswati Thakur mentioned this play to Srila Gaura Prabhu one day and requested Babaji Maharaj to be merciful to him. Babaji Maharaj informed Saraswati Thakur about the hypocritical nature of Ayatra and told his disciple that it was not proper that a sincere Vaishnava of Saraswati's status should intercede on behalf of a hypocrite. As a matter of course, Srila Gaura Kishore Prabhu told Saraswati Thakur many things relating to this matter. After some time, he took the dust of his own feet and smeared it on Srila Saraswati Thakur's head and said, "You are non-different from Lord Nityananda. Thus, your heart melts at the sorrow of others. But this person is extremely hypocritical and inveterately sinful. He does not desire his own welfare. His prayer for my mercy is merely an affection." As if to reveal the extent of wretchedness, Ayatra Punya one day drank water from a skull and told Saraswati Thakur, "Behold, I am more detached from the material world than Gaur Kishore Prabhu. Can he drink water from a skull?" Hearing this, Srila Saraswati Thakur said, "You evil rich, leave this place. My master will not perform the abominable acts of a worshipper of Kali. You are a demon and atheist. You therefore have a taste for all kind of abdominal activities. You are sure to be condemned to hell." As a result of this pride and his offenses to great saintly persons, Punya contracted the disease of illicit connection with women, and he took to begging to provide the prostitutes he visited with their daily necessities.
Single-minded chanting of the Lord's holy name. Once an old Vaishnava who was as venerable as a spiritual master to Bābājī Mahārāja became attached to deity worship instead of showing the ideal path of constant chanting of the Lord's name. While staying at Kulia, Bābājī Mahārāja mentioned this to Saraswati Thakura. The old Vaishnava has adopted the practice of Archana at the fag end of his life. Hearing this, Saraswati Thakura questioned him, saying, "Are you teasing me? There cannot be any deviation in the behavior of one who is like your spiritual master." To this, Bābājī Mahārāja replied, "If that is so, I shall not say any more in this regard." Śrīla Gaura Kishore Prabhu narrated this incident in order to instruct us that the path of Archana might constitute a reduction in the indifference to worldly affairs of one advanced in the performance of Harivajana. Love and lust. A learned caste Goswami delivered a discourse on Brahmara Gita, Sri Radha's soliloquy to a bee, at Kulia in Navadvipa. After he had lectured for 2 or 3 days, someone informed Bābājī Mahārāja that his discourses were excellent and that no one had ever heard such discourses before. Hearing this, Bābājī Mahārāja told his informant, "Don't go to hear that discourse on Brahmara Gita again. Behold, when there is rain, weeds grow very quickly. Carefully planted seeds can also grow, but some are destroyed prematurely by a heavy downpour. By hearing a discourse about Krishna and his pastimes, the seeds of love for Krishna bud forth in the heart of those persons who are pure, devoid of material desires, and sincerely dedicated to the service of the spiritual master and the Vaishnavas. Those in whom the seed of lust is found, however, will immediately become lustful upon hearing of the sportive pastimes of Sri Radha Krishna. By pretentiously hearing the pastimes of Radha Krishna, their lust becomes inflamed. The consciousness of the conditioned living beings is covered by lust, and thus they take the transcendental pastimes of Radha Govinda to be the libidinous exploits of a mundane hero and a heroine. Those who assume that because they have faith in the pastimes of Radha and Krishna, they are able to experience the transcendental nature of those pastimes, are unaware of their own carnal desires, being overwhelmed by the illusory energy. You cannot understand from their utterances whether the pastimes are transcendental or whether they have proper regard for the pastimes. Hearing this, another man from the assembly said, "I saw that some members of the audience who were listening to the Brahmara Gita cried out of spiritual ecstasy, and some wept, saying, 'O Krishna, O Radha.' Bābājī Mahārāja replied, 'It was not spiritual ecstasy, but rather the madness born of lust. This kind of deviation will cause the ruin of the world. We have come to know of their so-called ecstasy by seeing them weep. He who has no love for himself, how can he get love of Godhead through the display of Maya? If someone has truly achieved love of God, then request him to leave his home and family. He should come to the bank of the Ganges, renounce some sense gratification, and take shelter of honest, non-duplicious bhajana. If we observe him performing this austerity for 1 year, then we will know the true extent of eagerness to hear Brahmara Gita. This is the test of advancement enjoined by Bābājī Mahārāja for those who exhibit signs of spiritual emotion. Let them dissociate themselves from their kith and kin for at least 1 year and live the life of renunciation as is found in those truly detached from worldliness. If they cannot pass this test, then we must assume that They are foolish. They are foolish pretenders, and their ecstasies, the outward sign of licentiousness.
What is genuine Madhukari? A person named Saha used to voluntarily send bags of rice to Babaji Maharaj. Other well-wishers used to send some rice for him as well. This rice was stocked in a room at the Rani Dharmashala at Kulia, Navadvip. This practice came to the notice of Babaji Maharaj. After 2 months of accepting Saha's donation, Babaji Maharaj sent a man to request him to stop sending the rice. As soon as Saha was thus informed, he came to see Babaji Maharaj and inquired, "O Prabhu, how have I offended you? Why have you refused my alms?" In response, Babaji Maharaj remarked, "My spiritual master told me that it is better to be a virtuous bull than a domesticated cow." Overhearing this, one of the persons present asked Babaji Maharaj to explain the meaning of this statement. Babaji Maharaj then explained, "A cow is well looked after by the householder who gets milk from her. Thus, a person who sustains his life by taking food from only one man becomes dependent on that man just like a domesticated cow. When the protector gets into debt, however, his creditor will sell the cow and thus realize the debt. On the other hand, a virtuous bull is not under the control of a particular person. The animal moves freely from field to field and thus nourishes his body. Although the bull sometimes receives blows, it is not under any lifelong bondage. Moreover, those who keep badly behaved cows occasionally have to pay fines due to the cow's destruction of the property of others. If someone begs with a desire to get his necessities becomes like the protected cow. These days, the word Madhukari is very commonly used. Those who take up the dress of the Bābājī often say they will take to Madhukari. Madhukari is a transcendental practice. Those who adopt this occupation surrender themselves to Krishna, their bodily consciousness being vanquished. On the other hand, the materialists who have a taste for gratifying their tongues and genitals are bound in the cycle of birth and death for a long time. Dependent on the materialists, those who want to chant and worship in Vraja or Navadvip are like cows kept under protection. Those who collect their alms by begging from door to door in the name of Madhukari for eating well are pious bulls. This principle of Madhukari has been well stated in the song composed by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Kabe Gaura vane sura duni tate ha radhe ha Krishna bole kandiya beda bo deho sukha chadi nana lata tarutale swapacha grihete magiya khaibo Pibo Saraswati Jala Puline Puline Gada Gadi Dibo Kori Krishna Kolahala Dama Bashi Jane Pranati Korea Magibo Kripara Lesha Vaishnava Charana Renu Gaya Maki Dora Avadhuta Vesha Goda Braja Jane Bedana Dekibo Hoibo Barajabashi Damera Svarupas Puribe Nayane Hoiboradarari Dashi Hoiboradaradashi. When will I wander weeping under the shade of various trees and creepers on the banks of the celestial Ganga river in the land of Navadvip, crying, "O Radha, O Krishna," and forgetting all physical comforts? I will take my meals begging at the homes of Chandalas and will drink the water of the Saraswati river. In ecstasy, I will roll on the ground from bank to bank on the river, raising an uproar of Krishna, Krishna. Bowing down to the inhabitants of the holy land of Navadvip, I will beg an iota of mercy. I will wear the dress of mendicant and smear the dust of the Vaishnava's feet on my body. I will see no difference between the inhabitants of Rajabhumi and those of Navadvip, and I will be transformed into resident of Raja. The true nature of the Lord's abode will manifest itself to my eyes, and I will become a maidservant of Srimati Radharani. The duty of married couples. After his wedding, a rich man from Calcutta, who had taken shelter at the lotus feet of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, wished to know how he could utilize his time in Hari Bhajan while situated in married life. With that purpose in mind, he approached Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur for instruction. The wealthy gentleman became very depressed when he was informed by Saraswati Thakur that there might be well be various obstacles in his attempt to perform Hari Bhajan as a householder. Later on, the gentleman, accompanied by Śrīla Saraswati Thakur, went to meet Śrīla Gaura Kishora Das Bābājī Mahārāja on the river bank at Kulia. When it was mentioned to Śrīla Bābājī Mahārāja that the gentleman had married, Bābājī Mahārāja commented, "Yes, it is all right that he has married. From this time on, he will daily cook and offer foodstuff to Lord Vishnu. After offering it to him, he will serve the prasad to his wife, and then as a Vaishnav, he will take her prasad remnants. He will consider her as Krishna's servitor and his spiritual master. He will not think of her as an object of sensual gratification. Everything in this world, wealth, jewelry, man, woman, and are all for worshipping Krishna. That which is meant for Krishna's service should be utilized as such. Do not consider your wife as one meant for your service. Instead, respect her as servitor of Krishna." Here is the purport of Bābājī Mahārāja's foregoing discussion with householders. The sense of proprietorship of one's spouse is to be eschewed, and the conception of one's spouse as Krishna's worshipable servitor is to be nurtured. When one regards one's mate as the servitor of the Lord and thus suitable for his enjoyment only, one can easily transcend the urge to indulge in illicit sex, which so bedevils many a married couple. The return ticket. Kailash Pandyopadhyaya, MABL, once went from Calcutta to Kulia to have the audience of Śrīla Gaura Kishora Das Bābājī Mahārāja. When he was introduced, the latter told him, "Very good, you should stay here for Hari Bhajan." Mr. Bandyopadhyaya replied, "But I have a return ticket for Calcutta." Bābājī Mahārāja was astonished at this and said, "You have booked a return ticket, so why have you come to me?" "There was no need of you coming to me if you had booked a return ticket. According to my understanding, only those who are genuinely interested in Hari Bhajan come to the Dham. There is no return to material life for one who visits the holy Dhams of the Lord with a steadfast vow to become eternally situated in his loving service. We can only assume that Śrīla Gaura Kishora Das Bābājī Mahārāja expected Shriman Kailasaji to return to his wanted materialism when he availed himself of his return ticket rather than return as a man altered by his association with the residents of the Dham. The particular benefit afforded one by a pilgrimage to the abode of God manifest on earth is getting the association of sadhus. Unless one surrenders himself in a mood of eagerness at the lotus feet of genuine sadhu, one cannot derive the full benefit of visiting a holy artha. Mr. Kailash excuse for not engaging wholeheartedly in devotional service was so trivial as to simply invite a stern castigation.
External purity and material desire. A famous professional Bhagavatam reciter from Navadvip named Goswami once visited Śrīla Gaura Kishora Prabhu, clad in a woolen garment. While conversing, they began to discuss purity in devotional service. When asked about this, Śrīla Gaura Kishora Prabhu said, "People with desires contrary to devotional service, who are attached to gold and women, who make a show of purity, cannot perform sacrifices or other religious performances purely. Their manifold impure activities are merely heaps of impurity on already piled up garbage. If there is a spot of leprosy on any part of the body, it gradually spreads to other parts. There are people who want to maintain purity by simply putting on woolen clothes at the time of going to the latrine or by taking baths in the Ganga river. Their minds, however, are full of thoughts of sense gratification. They are very impure. They are so impure that they cannot realize their impurity even if it is explained to them. There are people who superficially put on woolen or saffron cloth, eat only sun rice, and take bath in the Ganga river to show that they are genuine Vaishnavas, but their hearts are full of material desires. They show great concern for their sons, wealth, women, and position, but the service to a Vaishnava does not appeal to them. However, Krishna does not happily accept the service of those who are not attached to serving the Vaishnavas, however pure they may try to be. It should not be misunderstood from this incident that it is improper to wear woolen cloth, to bathe in the Ganga, or to eat sun rice. Practices which help one maintain external purity, which rid one of sinful reactions or promote health, no doubt have their place. But they are of no avail if one is unprepared to take the foot dust of pure devotees of the Lord upon one's head. Men who have no devotion in their hearts are often found to act irreproachably with respect to ritual acts of purification and matters pertaining to the well being of the mortal frame. As it is stated in the Bhagavad Gita, Bhoga Ishwarya Prasaktanam Taya Pahirta Chetasam Vyavasayatmika Buddhi Samadho na Vidhiyate. In the minds of those who are too attached to sense enjoyment and material opulence, and those and who are bewildered by such things, the resolute determination for devotional service to the Supreme Lord does not take place. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, verse 44. Sri Prabhupada offers the following comments in this regard. Samadhi or absorption in spiritual ecstasy is never possible for persons interested in material sense enjoyment, nor for those who are bewildered by such temporary things. They are more or less condemned by the process of material energy. The birthplace of Lord Gaura. Once a man constructed a tin roofed hut under a neem tree at the southwest corner of the outdoor theatre of a wealthy resident of Navadvip. He installed deity of Bala Gaura, baby Gaura, there and declared to his neighbors that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had been born under that very neem tree. He explained that the Lord's birth site had previously been lost and covered. In order to re-establish this long-lost holy site, he began to collect donations from pilgrims. The enterprising rascal invited Srila Vamsidas Babaji Maharaj, who was a pure Vaishnava and very austere, to visit this newly discovered Tirtha, and he spared no pains in seeking to persuade him that this site was the actual Mayapur of Navadvip. He explained all of this with the hope that Srila Gaura Prabhu could be prevailed upon to believe that the above mentioned site was the authentic birthplace. Presently, this counterfeit birthplace is known variously as Bonikpada, Shankaripada, or Molanchapada, etc. The rascal claimed that this had all been revealed to him by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself in a dream. He declared that the present Mayapur, which is situated opposite Navadvip on the eastern bank of the river Ganga, was not the authentic place of Mahaprabhu's birth. Upon being informed of this his claim, Srila Gaura Prabhu commented, "The words of those great souls who have already uncovered the birth site of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by the power of their bhajan are the genuine, conclusive proof. The lost holy place of Mahaprabhu cannot be revealed by dreams alone. Holy places reveal themselves to pure devotees. And those saintly persons do not restore the lost tirthas for the sake of acquiring wealth. Only those who are Gauranga's personal associates can re-establish the lost birthplace of Gauranga. Others do not have such spiritual power. By the power of their knowledge and proper discrimination, Sri Jagannath Das Babaji and Thakur Bhakti Vinod have discovered the real birth site of Mahaprabhu, just as Sri Advaita Acharya brought about the advent of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. As soon as Srila Gaura Prabhu had uttered these words, Sri Vamsidas Babaji took up a sickle and cut the fence which enclosed the impostor's tin hut. By this act, he informed the innocent pilgrims that a hypocrite was illegally imitating great self-realized souls.
A festival for paupers. Once on the day preceding the observance of the disappearance of Srila Sanatan Goswami, Srila Babaji Maharaj informed a devotee, "Tomorrow is the day when Sri Goswami Prabhu disappeared. We will observe a great festival. In Navadvip, such festivals are not observed by the caste Goswamis." Hearing this, the devotee inquired, "How shall we obtain the necessary articles for the festival? How shall we celebrate it?" Srila Babaji Maharaj replied, "Keep this to yourself. We will forego our daily meal and constantly chant the Lord's holy name. This is how paupers like us will celebrate the festival." How to recognize a Vaishnava. Once someone asked Srila Gaura Prabhu, "The actual character of topmost Vaishnava does not always seem to correspond to the descriptions of their character, which are revealed in the scriptures such as Srimad Bhagavatam. Such Vaishnavas sometimes even appear to exhibit mundane characteristics. Please be merciful and instruct us in this matter so that we can easily recognize a genuine Vaishnava." Srila Babaji Maharaj responded, "Out of his own free will and the inspiration of Krishna, a great Vaishnava, being saddened by the misery of the fallen and conditioned souls, advents himself in a certain family, in a certain place, and at a certain time. When such an exalted Vaishnava attracts people by his ecstatic love and devotion and teaches them devotion to Lord Krishna, the Lord considers with some trepidation, 'It will be difficult for me to repay the debt to those who have surrendered themselves to such Vaishnavas, who are as dear to me as my life. I will become the servant of those who are affectionate to my pure devotees, and thus I will easily come under their control.' With this fear, Sri Krishna occasionally conceals the spiritual qualities of great souls from the eyes of the public. By the power of Krishna's Maya Shakti, the characteristics of the genuine Vaishnava are concealed from those who have interest contrary to devotional service. Thus, genuine Vaishnavas appear to the materialistic to have materialistic characters. In this mode, Krishna examines the living entity to see how much he is actually attracted to the absolute truth, and if he is, he reveals the spiritual characteristics of the great souls. Hence, without the exercise of the independent will of a Vaishnava, no one can know him even after seeing in him all of the characteristics described by the scriptures. It is often observed that the Vaishnavas praise the materialists and thereafter keep their distance from them. Sometimes out of fear of the crowd, such Vaishnavas conceal their natural spiritual symptoms. Sometimes they make a pretense of converting materialistic persons into their disciples. They seem to want to be served by them and always take their advice. Thus they keep their true nature obscured. I have seen with my own eyes that at Vraja a great Bhajana Nandi used to worship and chant at a village some distance north of Sri Radhakunda. Many distressed people used to visit him. He gave them hope that they could fulfill their desires, both physical and mental, by praying to Krishna. In the course of time his fame spread near and far, and people went there in droves day and night. He came to be reputed as a man of pure devotional austerity as Siddha Bābājī. When the news was spread that he was an extremely renounced soul, devoid of the desire for gold, woman, and adoration, and compassionate to conditioned souls, he was much harassed by a constant flow of visitors. Troubled by this, he made arrangements with a rich man for a monthly allowance, and with that money he engaged a young sweeper woman who sat in front of his cottage and acted as his servant. Seeing this, the people began to criticize him, concluding that this Vaishnava was a womanizer and attached to wealth, etc. Others stopped visiting this great soul Bhajananandi when they no longer obtained any material results from their homage to him. In fact, he was a real Vaishnava. When the Vaishnavas graciously reveal themselves, faithful persons who become attracted by the mercy of those Vaishnavas and complete surrender to them can know the true identity of such Vaishnavas. Those who are very fortunate are not deprived of their service or their mercy. Otherwise, the Vaishnavas devise various deceptive means to hide themselves. To know a Vaishnava, one has to pray sincerely at the lotus feet of Gaura Nityananda, and by their mercy, when one's heart becomes devoid of pride and filled with humility, Nitai Gaura then revealed the true identity of a Vaishnava in one's heart. Nitai Gaura are revealed through the Vaishnava, and the Vaishnava is revealed by Gaura Nitai. It has been well stated in the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita by Sri Kaviraj Goswami, Ei dui bai hridaya rakshali andakara dui bhagavata sangha sanghe karana sakshatkara.
The imitation of Mahabhagavatas. A brahmachari born in a Brahmana family went to Srila Gaura Kishore Prabhu and expressed his eagerness to execute Hari Bhajan in his association. Shortly thereafter, he became well respected by the people for his devotional austerities. Seeing the reverence which the people showed him, the brahmachari decided to build a thatched hut like Bābājī Maharaj. He secretly collected funds for this purpose and built a cottage on the bank of the river Ganges. The brahmachari then thought to take the permission at Bābājī Maharaj before he entered the hut, but before he could approach the subject of the omniscient Bābājī said, "Oh, respected brahmachari, that you have a desire to execute bhajana is good, but if you enter the house of Maya, you will be increasingly entangled by Maya. You should leave this thatched hut and perform your bhajan under the tree." At this, a sentimental follower of Bābājī Maharaj asked, "You previously advised to us to do bhajan by going into your room and bolting the door from the inside. Why do you now say that Hari Bhajan should be performed under a tree? Otherwise it will not be a Hari Bhajan." Hearing this, Bābājī replied angrily, "Yes, I was correct in saying so. This body is the house, and our two eyes are the doors. He who closes the doors and learns to imitate the external behavior of Vaishnava can never be said to have closed the door. His only means for success is to take shelter under a tree. One gets a supreme benediction if he obeys the instruction of his spiritual master and the Vaishnavas. If he maintains the faith in such instruction, he will gradually develop the ability to follow it. However, if he imitates their behavior, he is sure to quickly fall. Eventually, the brahmacharis left the association of Babaji Maharaj, who commented, "Behold such people who are so evil-minded. He performs Hari Bhajan with a desire to be respected by common people. After 2 or 4 days, he will become greedy for money. Those who are unqualified to carry the burden of asceticism still want to act as though they were Paramahamsas." After this incident, Brahmachari decided to return home. When one of Babaji Maharaj's neighbor asked him why he has been entrapped by Maya despite associating with sadhu, why isn't he reaping the result of good association? To this, Babaji Maharaj responded, "The pretense of associating with sadhus is not genuine association with sadhus. One is not benefited if he leaves the association of saintly persons before the benefits thereof fructify. The brahmachari has gained this much in the future. He will not eat flesh or fish, or he will superficially follow principles of pious behavior, but he will not be able to enter into the kingdom of Harivajan."
Anyabhilasha, desire for other things. Once the day before the celebration of Rath Yatra, Srila Gaur Kishore Prabhu asked the people who had gathered for his association, "Where will you go to see the forthcoming Rath Yatra?" At, at Podammatala, there is a large cart and festival, and to the east there is a prominent zamindar who has a cart. And if one goes there, he can get rasagullas and yogurt and flat rice. In this manner, Babaji Maharaj described 5 or 7 places where Rath Yatra was to be held. At this, everyone began to wonder whether Babaji Maharaj was encouraging them to attend the car festivals. Almost every day, they had been gathering to read Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat, Sri Chaitanya Charitamrit, and Srimad Bhagavatam, and Srila Babaji Maharaj give the philosophical understanding of the portions studied. He liked to repeatedly hear about the character of Prahlad Maharaj because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had frequently exhibited pastime of hearing about the activities of Prahlad Maharaj. At other times, Babaji Maharaj listened to Prarthana and Prem Bhakti Chandrika by Narottam Das Thakur and would explain the proper conclusions of those songs. A reciter would read the scriptures, but the commentator was Babaji Maharaj. On the actual day of Rath Yatra, the usual class was not held as everyone had gone to see the chariot parades. Babaji Maharaj opened the door of his thatched cottage, came out, and announced with a slight smile on his face, "Today I can save my breath as everyone has gone. Those who were chanting Harinam with offense have given up the hearing and chanting of Harikatha in the association of devotees, and having gone to see the Rath Yatra, they will look at the young women, the crowd of worldly people, and other objects of enjoyment. They have no attraction for Hari Bhajan in the association of Vaishnavas. They have come on the plea of association with Vaishnavas, but since they lack real attachment for hearing and chanting the Lord's glories, they are being swept away by the current of desires for other things, Anyabhilash." Thereafter, Babaji Maharaj began to chant to himself at the top of his voice. Later that day, seeing those who had participated in the car festival gradually returning, Babaji Maharaj, looking very grave, did not speak to anyone. Srila Gaur Kishore Prabhu on Bhakti Vinod Thakur. Srimati Bhagavati Devi, the wife of Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur, and the Thakur's second daughter, Kadambini, sometimes went to Kulia, Navadvip, from the Bhakti Bhavan in Calcutta to have darshan of the lotus feet of Srila Gaur Kishore Goswami. On one such occasion, Babaji Maharaj questioned them, "Why have you come to Kulia leaving behind the deity Thakur of your home? Have you come to shop in the market, or have you come to see the deity of the market? The internal associate of Lord Gaura has appeared in your home. If you want to keep him there for some time, then you should go home and perform Hari Bhajan with single-mindedness. Otherwise, you will not be able to keep him there much longer."
The Artful Pastimes of a Vaishnava. When Thakur Bhaktivinoda exhibited his pastimes of illness in his final years, he was residing at Bhakti Bhavan in Calcutta. A caste Goswamis visited Babaji Maharaj in Kulia and later said, "You go to Calcutta, the material world, and bring Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur to his holy dham." The caste Goswami could not grasp what the intimate associate of Lord Chaitanya was indicating. He did not understand. Tomara Hriday Sada Govinda Vishram. The heart of a Vaishnava is always the resting place of Lord Govinda. And whenever there are Vaishnavas, that place is Vrindavan, and that in that place there is unlimited bliss. Wherever Mahabhagavata appears, he lives there with his Golok associates and serves Krishna, the son of Raja, 24 hours a day. Thakur Bhaktivinoda's saying, "My house became Goloka," was beyond a mere hyperbole and should be accepted as factual. When the caste Goswami arrived in Calcutta, he conveyed Babaji Maharaj's message to Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and the Thakur responded by giving his blessings to Srila Gaura for his performance of Hari Bhajan. Srila Saraswati Thakur later explained the truth of Vaishnava to the ignorant Goswami, telling him, having perceived the evil in our thoughts, the Vaishnava in accordance with the verse from Bhagavad Gita, "Ye yatha mam prapadyante tam tataiva bhajamyaham," deceive us in various ways. Having perceived the motive with which we approach them, the Vaishnavas feel there will not be much benefit in their instructing us, and accordingly speak about various other matters to test our sincerity, keeping themselves absorbed in uninterrupted Bhagavad Bhajan. In the meanwhile, many materialistic people whimsically approached Srila Gaurkishore and were instructed by him according to their predis- predispositions. Being thus deceived, they returned whence they had come, hearing ordinary talk from Babaji Maharaj about everyday articles such as flour, rice, oil, betel, potatoes, patola, etc. They got the opportunity to become more interested in worldly affairs. If one possesses a hypocrite's materialistic instinct, then he cannot truly associate with sadhus. If, on the other hand, one surrenders fully to a sadhu, he will be pleased to reveal himself to one and will continually speak the absolute truth, free from illusion. Srila Gaur Kishore's benediction. Bhakti Pradipa Tirtha Maharaj, with the encouragement of Srila Saraswati Thakur and the permission of Srila Thakur Bhaktivinoda, crossed the river Ganges to have darshan of Srila Gaur Kishore Goswami. Tirtha Maharaj was a grihastha at the time and had not yet been initiated by Thakur Bhaktivinoda. While going to visit Srila Gaur Kishore Prabhu, he carried a melon with him. Ordinarily, Babaji Maharaj did not accept presents, but when he heard that someone had come from Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he accepted the fruit. He told that devotee in the dress of a householder to sing some kirtan from Narottam Das Thakur's Prarthana. The householder sang, "Gauranga bolite habe pulaka sharire, Hari Hari bolite nayana babe neera." Having heard him sing, Srila Gaur Kishore gave him the following instruction: keep faith in the spiritual master and other Vaishnavas. Be as humble as a blade of grass and with the forbearance of a tree. Always chant the name of the Lord. Keep yourself aloof from the association of non-devotees. Hearing this, Bhakta Pradeepa Prabhu told Babaji Maharaj, "At this time I do not believe the shelter of the lotus feet of Guru." Srila Gaur Kishore Prabhu replied, "You have taken darshan of Srimad Bhakti Vinod Thakur in Mayapur, and that is the place of Atmaniveda, the complete surrender. As you have surrendered yourself to the lotus feet of a bona fide Guru, then how can you have not achieved this shelter? Bhaktivinoda Thakur is waiting for you. Go and take his mercy." After hearing this, the Grihastha devotee got his head shaved. Srila Gaurkishore Prabhu then told him, "When you take sannyasa, the name of Mahaprabhu will be spread from country to country and village to village." Thus blessed by Babaji Maharaj, Bhakti Pradeepa Prabhu touched his lotus feet and offered him obeisances. When hypocritical and materialistic people came to pay respects to Babaji Maharaj in that manner, he would say, "Everything you have will be destroyed, your home will be razed to the ground." In this way, he displayed his pastime of anger. In this case, however, his attitude was quite different. The same day, the devotee went to Kodruma to Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur and was initiated by him into the Kama Bija and Kama Gayatri mantras. According to the prediction of Babaji Maharaj, he was the first disciple to be given Tridanda Sannyasi by Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, whom he considered his Siksha Guru. He was known as Bhakti Pradipa Tirtha Maharaj. According to his capacity, he preached the philosophy of Lord Chaitanya and Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur in India and abroad.
His entrance into the eternal pastimes of the Lord. In the Bengali year 1322, at dawn, on the 30th day of the month of Kartika, corresponding to November 16, 1915, Srila Gaura Kishore Das Goswami entered the eternal pastimes of the Lord. That day at sunrise, Srila Saraswati Thakur left Sri Mayapur for the Rani Dharmashala at Kulia, where Bābājī Mahārāja had been staying. The head priests of Navadvip's various temples and ashramas began to argue amongst themselves about where Bābājī Mahārāja's spiritual body would be interred. A heated argument arose. There was a material motive behind the dispute, for the contending parties considered that establishing the Bābājī Mahārāja Samadhi at their ashrama or temple would put them in a position to earn handsomely from the pilgrims who would flock to see the tomb of the Paramhamsa. Srila Saraswati Thakur opposed their illegitimate attempts. However, apprehending a breach of peace, Navadvip's inspector of police, who was at that time Mr. Jatindranath Simha, arrived there. After much controversy, the various hypocritical Vaishnavas stated their position. Srila Saraswati Thakur is not a sannyasi and thus has no right to prepare a samadhi for a person who has renounced his home. Hearing their pronouncement, Saraswati Thakur replied in a voice like thunder, saying, I am the sole disciple of Paramahamsa Bābājī Maharaj. Even though I have not accepted sannyasa, I am a celibate brahmachari, and by the grace of Bābājī Maharaj, I am not a hypocritical renunciate secretly addicted to abominable habits or fornication, as some monkey like people are. I take pride in saying this as a bearer of Bābājī Maharaj's shoes. If there is someone who is renunciate of truly stainless character, then he can come forward and arrange for the samadhi. I have no objection to that. He who, within the last 1 year or 6 months, 3 months, 1 month, or even 3 days has not indulged in illicit association with women, will be able to touch his spiritual blissful body. If anyone else touches it, he will be completely ruined. Hearing these words, the inspector of police said, How will the evidence for this be produced? Srila Saraswati Thakur rejoined, I will believe what they say. After this challenge was offered, the Babajis turned their backs one by one and departed from that place. The inspector of police was dumbfounded. Some of the people remaining there advised that Bābājī Maharaj had expressed a last desire that his body be dragged through the streets of Navadvip in the dust of the Dharma. To this, Saraswati Thakur replied, Although we are fools, inexperienced, and offenders, we will still not be disinclined to understand the true meaning of those humility filled words which have been spoken by my Gurudeva to destroy the pride of worldly minded people. Even Krishna Chandra will personally think himself successful if he carries my Gurudeva on his head or shoulders. After the departure of Haridas Thakur, Sri Gaurasundara took the spiritual body of the Thakura on his lap and danced. What dignity he adorned it with. Therefore, the following in the footsteps of Sriman Mahaprabhu, we shall also bear Bābājī Maharaj's spiritually blissful body on our heads. On the following day, November 17, 1915, on the Uthana Ekadasi in the afternoon, and according to spiritual ordinances, Srila Saraswati Thakur laid the body of his guru to rest on a newly formed sandpit of the Ganges at Kulia. A low caste person of Lohagara from the district of Jessore donated his property and claimed to give up all rights to it. Yet after some time, he forgot his promise and utilized that land for various illicit materialistic activities. Although he was criticized for this, he maintained his pride and committed offenses to the eternal associates of Lord Chaitanya. 16 years later, by the will of Gaura Kishore Das Bābājī Maharaj, his place of rest was eroded by the river's Ganges and inundated by it. Srila Saraswati Thakur organized a party of men and recovered the Samadhi intact and brought it to the bank of Radhakund at Vrajapatana, where he re-established it before a memorial to Sri Gunamanjari. Nitya Gauranga Das Adhikari, a disciple of Srila Saraswati Thakur, helped to construct a beautiful Samadhi temple on the site. We close our recounting of the transcendental deeds of Bābājī Maharaj with his oft-recited prayer, Namo Gaura Kiśorāya Sakshat Vairagya Murte Vipralambara Sambodhe Padam Bhujayate Namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto Gaur Kishore Das Bābājī Maharaj, the spiritual master of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, whose renunciation personified is always merged in a feeling of separation from an intense love for Krishna.
Śrīla Jagannath Das Bābājī. Om Vishnupad Shri Srimad Jagannath Das Bābājī Maharaj appeared in this world sometime around 1750 AD, in a remote village in the subdivision of Tangail, in the district of Mayamansingh, in what is now known as Bangladesh. He belonged to a very aristocratic family. The Gaudiya Vedanta Acharya Srila Baladev Vidyabhushana initiated disciple was Uddhava Das Babaji, and his initiated disciple was Madhusudana Das Babaji, and Jagannath Das Babaji accepted Babaji initiation from Madhusudana Das Babaji Maharaj. According to the Gaudiya Vaishnava Jivana, the Diksha Guru of Jagannath Das Babaji was Jagadananda Goswami or Sringarvat, Jagadananda Goswami of Sringarvat, Vrindavan, whose Vesha Guru was Krishna Das Babaji of Govardhan fame. Jagannath Das Babaji performed bhajan in Vrajamandal for many years. He was famed throughout the region as a Siddha Baba, a perfectly realized soul. He was known to sometimes chant continuously for 3 days and nights in a row without sleeping, and he would fast throughout. After the completion of this vow, he would break fast upon flat rice and yogurt prasad. In the year 1880, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur visited Babaji Maharaj's lotus feet in Vrindavan and got many valuable instructions from him. In the 1880s, the Paramahamsa Babaji came to the Burdwan district, staying in the village of Amalajoda. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur went there on the pretext of government business, thereby obtaining the association of Jagannath Das Babaji for the second time. The Babaji was delighted by Bhaktivinoda Thakur's enthusiasm for preaching the glories of the holy name of Krishna. Thereafter, Jagannath Das Babaji sojourned in Burdwan for 11 days and performed uninterrupted kirtan, chanting and scriptural discussion, day and night. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur established a Prapanna ashram, or a monastery for surrender to Krishna, in Amalajoda village. In the year 1893, Jagannath Das Babaji was residing in Kulia, Navadvip, and he went to see Surabhi Kunja, the residence of Thakur Bhaktivinoda. The entire grove was electrified by his arrival and appeared especially beautiful. Later, together with his followers, he proceeded to Mayapur and visited many holy places like the Yogapith, Srivasangana, etc. When he arrived at the birthplace of Lord Gaura, which had been discovered by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he began to dance in ecstasy. Although he was very old at that time and had previously been thought unable to walk, he thus established the authenticity of the sight beyond any doubt. He spent some time at the Yoga Pit in the association of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and he miraculously cured one of the Thakur's sons of a skin disease simply by telling him to lie down in the dust of the Lord's place of appearance. He passed most of the time chanting the holy name on the bank of the Ganga in Kulia. His bhajan kutir and samadhi may still be seen there. One day he asked Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur to construct a veranda to shelter the devotees who came to see him, which the Thakur did immediately. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was well versed in astronomy by the age of 12. Hearing of this, Babaji Maharaj summoned him one day and instructed him to make a Vaishnava calendar, which would include the appearance and disappearance days of all the associates of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Vishnupriya Thakurani. Accordingly, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur made the necessary calculations and began publication of the Sri Navadvip Panchika. Jagannath Das Babaji's life and soul was chanting of the holy name and rendering service to the Vaishnavas. He lived on this earth for 135 years, according to Gaura Parishida Charitavali, and preached the holy name of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Although he was almost bent double in his old age, still during the time of Kirtan his body would expand to well over 6 feet, and his appearance would replicate the dancing figure of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. His favorite disciple was Bhagavad Das Babaji, who had accepted Babaji initiation from him. Gaura Kiśora Das Babaji took Babaji initiation from Srila Bhagavad Das Babaji Maharaj. Gaura Hari Das Babaji, Rama Hari Das Babaji and Nityananda Das Babaji were disciples of Jagannath Das Babaji, who hailed from Barshana in Vrajamandala. Another disciple called Krishna Das Babaji was from Kadam Khandi, Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj's personal servant and disciple. Sri Bihari Das was very stout and powerful. Due to Babaji Maharaj's advanced age, he could apparently not walk. Sri Bihari used to carry him everywhere on his shoulder in a bamboo basket. Once when he was traveling thus, a wealthy man gave him a rupee. which was deposited with Bābājī Mahārāja's servant, Bihari. After journeying for some miles, Śrīla Bābājī Mahārāja had his servant take him back to the donor, and he returned his 1 rupee. He told the man, "Understand that you have a good deal of money. I could not bear the burden of 1 rupee, and I wonder how you tolerate the burden of so many." Bābājī Mahārāja sometimes accepted donation for rendering service to the Vaishnavas, but in this instance he instructively exhibited his detachment, showing how one must be very wary of accepting charity from the pound, shilling, and pence class of men. Inspired by Bihari Das, the villagers of Surya Kunda built a small temple for Śrīla Jagannath Das Bābājī Mahārāja. The Siddha Baba asked Bihari Das to install a deity in the temple. Upon receiving this order, Bihari proceeded to Sonaruddi village, which was about 8 miles from Katwa. He requested the local landlord to give him a deity. He duly received Gaura deities, went to Calcutta and collected donations totaling 5,000 rupees from Srinath Rai, the renowned Laha families, and others. He then returned to Surya Kunda. With great pomp and festivity, the deities of Sri Sri Gaura were installed in the temple, where they glistened like gold. Shortly thereafter, a band of dacoits stormed the temple one night and attempted to carry away the deities, thinking them to be actually fashioned from gold. However, they were unsuccessful in attempting to purloin those golden lords and fell exhausted in the temple. They fled without achieving their aim just before the arrival of dawn. This incident disturbed Bābājī Mahārāja greatly, and he told Bihari Das to donate the deities to some devotee in Vrindavan. Bihari Das went to Vrindavan town and presented them to a Goswami of Bengali extraction. These deities are still being worshipped in the temple of Dobigati of Gopalba and are famous by the name of Sonar Gaura, yet the Golden Gaura. Several days after this incident, Śrīla Bābājī Mahārāja told Bihari Das, "I cannot live without the deities. Bring another deity from wherever you can find one." Hearing his Guru Maharaj's command, Bihari proceeded to Radha Kunda and met Sri Dhenu Das Bābājī of Mathura. There in Radha Kunda, in a stack of hay, which had been gathered for feeding the cows, they discovered a deity of Sadbhuja, a 6-armed deity of Lord Ramachandra, Lord Krishna Chandra, and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu combined. Bihari Das had the deity properly painted in Vrindavan and returned to Surya Kunda with great enthusiasm. The beautiful form of the Lord was installed according to the scriptural ordinances, and Śrīla Bābājī Mahārāja worshipped him for 10 years. With the passing of a decade, Śrīla Jagannath Das Bābājī Mahārāja was inspired to go to Navadvip, and he therefore requested Bihari Das to deliver the deity to someone in Vrindavan. Bihari Das thus proceeded to Vrindavan and gave the deity to the head priest of the Gopal Guru Ashram, who was known as Sri Narottam Das Bābājī. The Lord, in his 6-armed form, is worshipped to this day in the Sadbhuja temple situated in a lane near Niduvana. Bihari then carried his Guru Maharaj on his shoulder to the Mathura railway station and boarded a train to Navadvip. When they reached the Memri station in Bardhavan, a British railway officer was so impressed by the simplicity and blissful nature of Śrīla Bābājī Mahārāja that he assisted them in many ways. They alighted from the train before reaching Navadvip, hired a bullock cart, and traveled to the ashram of a famous pure soul named Sri Bhagavan Das Bābājī, who resided at Ambika Kalna in Bengal. This great soul was extremely pleased to see Śrīla Jagannath Das Bābājī Mahārāja, and he exclaimed in a state of transcendental exultation, "Oh, my friend has come." He then embraced Sri Jagannath Das Bābājī. Both of them fell to the ground in a state of profound transcendental ecstasy and becoming unconscious entered into an impenetrable spiritual trance. They remained motionless, locked in their embrace of loving friendship from 10 o'clock in the morning until 11 o'clock that night. The servants of the two Siddha Babas began to feel uneasy, and Sri Vishnu Das, the servant of Sri Bhagavan Das Bābājī Mahārāja, requested Bihari Das to do something to bring them back to external awareness. Bihari Das began to massage his Guru's chest and chant the Maha Mantra. This device brought them both back into external consciousness, and they got up. Śrīla Jagannath Das Bābājī Mahārāja had not eaten or drunk during his 3 days of travel, and so prasad was immediately arranged, and he broke his fast at midnight. After this they slept a while. After staying at Kalna for 10 days, Jagannath Das Prabhu decided to proceed to Navadvip by bullock cart. Bhagavan Das Bābājī had only 18 rupees in his possession, but he insisted upon giving it to Jagannath Das Bābājī for his journey. which he happily accepted. On the way, Bihari inquired where they would stay in Navadvip, suggesting that they stay in a large ashram popularly called Pada Akhara. Srila Babaji Maharaj replied, "No, we will not stay in any ashram. We will stay under some tree." They indeed stayed under a tree for some time, but later a devotee named Sri Madhava Datta purchased the land adjacent to the tree and donated it to the Babaji. A year later, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur built two small huts for him. Rajarshi Sri Vanamali Rai, a famous landlord, built there more huts and a boundary wall about them. An elderly and wealthy lady had a well dug for drinking water. The Babaji stayed there in Kulia for 32 years. According to Gaudiya Vaishnava Jivana, he lived to the age of 147 years, at which he entered the pastimes of the Lord. He used to strictly and regularly follow the vows of Chaturmasya, the 4-month-long rainy season. In the first month he would take only 4 bananas each day in the evening. In the second month he would only take guavas. In the third month he drank some buttermilk. In the fourth month he consumed only the flowers of the banana tree. He once went to Rishikesh to purify his chanting, which involved the performance of the purificatory practice called Purascharana. This penance had to be performed with extreme rigidity. He used to bathe at 3 o'clock in the morning and chant inside a closed room until sunset without speaking or eating. In order to complete the vow properly, one is accepted to take bath after each call of nature and even after passing air. Once after observing this regimen for 2 months, he inadvertently spoke to Bihari Das. He began the entire process again and completed his vow in 3 months' time. He thereafter pronounced that if one wanted to have darshan of Lord Krishna, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he should perform Purascharana in this manner. Babaji Maharaj once accepted some bread from a person belonging to the sweeper caste in Vrindavan. This action was much criticized by the local Vaishnava community. Many people approached him and challenged him to explain his action. He replied, "Do you know who these sweepers are?" Before appearing in Vrajadam, Lord Krishna asked 88,000 sages to take birth there, and they were born in low-class families. Devotees reside in Vrajadam simply to get the opportunity of smearing their bodies with the dust and indeed to give up their bodies here. These sweepers are always serving the dust of Vrindavan. Therefore, I regard them as servants of Vrajadam and see them as no different from any other Vaishnavas. After this incident, the Babaji decided to chant in seclusion and proceeded to a place called Pesikandakandi, which was miles away from any village near Kandirvana, one of Raja's 12 forests. He and Bihari spent the Dashami and Ekadashi there fasting completely. On the Dvadasi morning, Bihari began to think that Srila Babaji Maharaj had gone to a place where nothing was available to eat, and that the Ekadashi fast could not be properly broken by their eating prasad made from grains. However, the Babaji ordered Bihari to chant the Mahamantra loudly to the accompaniment of karatalas, and before noon, Rajabasi came, and brought some grains for them to prepare prasad. From the following day onward, huge amounts of milk came to them daily. Wherever they went, prasad was always miraculously available to them. Once in Navadvip, a similar event took place during the rainy season. The whole city was flooded with the water of the Ganga, and it continued raining heavily for 1 week. No one could go out to beg alms. Suddenly 4 persons appeared in a small boat and donated Babaji Maharaj 20 kilograms of flat rice, yogurt, and sandesh. While he was staying in Navadvip, he became the object of great affection and acclaim. On one occasion, the famous landlord Srinath Rai and several family members went to have an audience with the famous saintly person. Not recognizing him, they asked if he knew where the famous Siddha Baba lived. Srila Babaji Maharaj replied, "I don't know any who is a Siddha Baba here. I am staying here, but I am simply an ordinary living entity like all of you." The Rais then realized that they were actually addressing Srila Babaji Maharaj, who was completely free from any desire for recognition of fame. Nevertheless, they humbly requested him to show them a miracle. Becoming disturbed, the Babaji declared, "I do not know how to perform any miracles." He then picked up a stick and started beating the ground. apparently out of annoyance. The landlord, fearful that he had committed an offense, begged the Babaji not to be angry with them for their having made an unpleasant request. Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj replied, "I'm not angry with you. I was just chasing out a goat who was eating the tulasi plant near the cottage of Srila Lokanath Goswami at Radhakund." The Rais were much astonished to hear this, and to test the veracity of the statement, they immediately sent a reply-paid telegram to Radhakund. The reply came back the following day, and it confirmed that a goat had entered the cottage of Srila Lokanath Goswami and ruined the tulasi plant there. This incident convinced the many doubting persons of Babaji's perfection. They returned to see him and fell at his feet to offer their obeisances. Perfect devotees of the Lord, being disinterested in the material universe, never desired to make an exhibition of miracles powers in order to increase the faith of worldly creatures. However, they are sometimes inspired by the indwelling Godhead to perform some supermundane deed for their edification. Once, while residing in Navadvip, Bihari Das became seriously ill. He suffered a severe fever and delirium, and periodically lapsed into unconsciousness. A medical expert was summoned from Calcutta, but he declared that the illness was too far advanced to respond to treatment. He predicted that Bihari would expire before morning. Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj then sat by the side of his dear servant. He put a sanctified tulasi leaf in his mouth and began to chant the Hare Kṛṣṇa Mahamantra. Within half an hour, Bihari was cured. He rose from his bed and proceeded to the kitchen to cook prasad, knowing that Srila Babaji Maharaj, who had fasted throughout his servitor's illness, would not eat anything unless it was prepared by him. Srila Jagannath Das Babaji used to say that the best time for chanting was from 3 o'clock in the morning until 7 in the morning, and again from sunset until 11 o'clock at night. He declared that no serious-minded devotee should sleep during these hours, as Lord Shiva comes to inspect the devotees of his Guru, Lord Krishna, at those times. Although the Babaji could not walk properly during his last years, still he would dance very enthusiastically during the performance of Sankirtan. His body would expand while dancing. He daily paid 1,000 obeisances to Giridhari deity until the last day of his life. He did not like the idea of leaving any prasad on his plate, and if he thought anyone was going to eat his remnants, he would consume every last morsel and even the leaf plate to prevent it. Bihari Das was illiterate and did not even know the alphabet. One day, Srila Babaji Maharaj asked him to read the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita to him. When Bihari reminded his Guru Maharaj of his illiteracy, the Babaji requested him to simply look at the book for some time and then start chanting its stanzas. Within minutes, Bihari Das started reciting the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu from the pages of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. Whenever he went to Calcutta, he would sojourn in the house of Bhaktivinoda Thakur on Maniktala Street. Many devotees tried to take him to their homes to give him prasad, but he never accepted their invitations. He donated a Govardhan Shila to Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who worshipped the Shila at his Bhakti Bhavan. His eyesight was dimmed due to old age, and people who came to see him used to offer donations. Bihari Das would keep the contributions in an empty clay water pot. One day Babaji Maharaj suddenly asked, "Bihari, give me all the donations you have received." Bihari would sometimes set some of the money aside for Babaji Maharaj's needs, but Jagannath Das Babaji would immediately discern the exact amount missing and demand that it be returned. Bihari would laugh and immediately comply. Babaji Maharaj used to spend the collection according to his own grave desires. Once he purchased 200 rupees worth of rasagullas for the cows of Navadvip Dham, an enormous amount of sweetmeats in those days. On another occasion, a dog gave birth to 5 puppies on the bank of the Ganga, near Babaji Maharaj's Bhajan Kutir. Even the sage sat down to take prasad. When the sage sat down to take prasad, the dog sat around his plate. Bihari tried to move some of the puppies, but Babaji Maharaj said, "Take my plate away, I will not eat today." Wearied, Bihari would produce the dogs and say, "Here are the dogs." Babaji Maharaj would say fondly, "They are the dogs of the Dham." Many people used to approach Babaji Maharaj and beg to be initiated by him, but he did not generally accept them. He would, however, request them to render various kinds of services. Most of them would soon leave due to the pressure of being heavily engaged by him. One gentleman in particular, Sri Gaura Haridas, came for initiation, but Babaji Maharaj refused to accept him. On that account, Gaura Hari fasted for 3 days in front of the Paramahamsa's cottage. Finally, Bābājī Maharaj took mercy on him and granted him Bābājī initiation. He once told a professional Bhagavatam reciter, "Your speaking the Bhagavatam is the same business as prostitutes. Those who recite the Bhagavatam as a business are offenders of the holy name, and one should not hear from them. If anyone hears from them, he will simply become degraded." The gentleman immediately ceased his recitations, and he became a great devotee, living humble existence in Vrindavan. Srila Jagannath Das Babaji used to stay 6 months in Vraja and 6 months in Navadvip Dham. According to Gaudiya Vaishnava Jivana, at the age of 146, when he was set to travel to Navadvip from Radha Kunda, many Brajabashis and other Vaishnavas went to him to inquire why he was leaving Vrajadam at such an advanced age. In a very humble and transcendentally depressed mood, he replied, "You can all stay here in Vrajadam because you are all pure Vaishnavas. I am very offensive, and therefore it is better for me to stay at Navadvip. Their lordships Sri Sri Gaura Nitai do not count one's offenses, as they have appeared to liberate all offenders, but here in Vrajadam offenses are counted and reactions thereto are strictly enforced." This was his last journey to Navadvip Dham. A few months after his arrival, on the first day of the new moon in the month of Phalguna, a fortnight before the anniversary of Lord Chaitanya's appearance, he entered the Lord's eternal pastimes. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur used to always call Srila Bābājī Maharaj Vaishnav Sarvabhauma, the commander-in-chief of the Vaishnavas. Gaura Virbhava Bhumestvam Nirdeshta Sajjana Priya Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Sri Jagannatha Te Nama. I offer my respectful obeisances unto Jagannath Das Babaji, who is respected by the entire Vaishnava community and who discovered the place where Lord Chaitanya appeared. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.